Howdy, howdy.
Hey, hey, hey. We're live right now.
We're live.
Oh, we're live. Not only are we live, we're on YouTube, man.
You promised digital difficulties.
I am having them at this moment.
Oh.
Never mind. There you go. I kept my promise.
Is it only on YouTube Live, or is it simul on YouTube Live and Twitch?
No, if I did that, I would be breaking some terms of agreement that I have. But we're live. We're live. Look at it right there. Hello, fellow heroes. What's going on? How's it going? Let me mess with this real quick. Okay. How you doing today, Jeff?
I'm tired, man. How are you?
I'm tired, dude. I actually this is gonna sound kind of bad, but I actually cannot wait for Monday. I can't wait for tomorrow.
What happens tomorrow?
Tomorrow, I don't have to worry about anything. I just go to work and then come home. And this last week's been really busy for me with my birthday and all those other things that have been going on.
I see.
So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for relaxing. R&R, as closest to relaxation I can get.
Sounds good.
So, last week we kind of hinted at. Hold on. Let me hit this record. It's weird because I want to hit start recording, but at the same time, everything that's happening right now is just gonna go straight on YouTube. So my mind's in a weird place because I'm so used to Twitch where everything that happens now, I just know, it's going to be deleted in the future. But everything that we say will and can be used against us.
Uh-oh.
Making things pretty interesting. Okay, so I'm still going to hit the record button. And we're gonna roll with it. Do
we need to get more people in here? Or... if people come, they come. If not, they don't.
Yes. So we got some people. I think people are gonna be showing up. So cool. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get some people showing up. Let me go ahead and just.
And if not, we'll just talk.
Yeah.
For a little bit or a lot of bit. Who knows, man?
Let me put this in here. Let me do this, and then let me do that. There we go. Boom. All right. So we should be getting some people showing up. Either way, it's gonna be a good time. Let's talk about. I'm gonna hit the record. I'm gonna do the intro, and then it's gonna be it's gonna be just like any other stream, any other podcast that we do, Jeff. So, 3, 2, 1. Hello, fellow heroes, and welcome to the Digital Roundtable, where me, your host, Mario, and my co-host, Jeff,
hi,
we talk about movies, media, video games, things that we like, mostly movies. Always feel free to catch us live. Now you can do it in the YouTube channel. I'm on YouTube. I'm streaming on YouTube. It's a one-stop shop. I was putting out videos on YouTube, so if you want to keep up to date on the date, you can also catch our previous podcasts, put it up on YouTube. But also, if you want to listen to us on your ride to work, you want to listen to us while you're at work, you want to listen to us on your lunch break. I don't know. For some reason, I just assume everyone listens to podcasts at work. You just want to slack off at work and listen to us. Feel free to check out one of our podcasts on your podcast service of choice, whether that be Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we're on some other ones as well. So yeah, check us out, let us know, and then hit us up in the comment section with what you think and what you want to hear next. So, Jeff, all right, so we're on this new thing. There might be some digital difficulties, as I call them. I've already had a couple. I'm already having one right now. So I had one. I'm completely new to this. There's my moderator. So boom, it's now official. You're now a moderator here. Ezio, welcome. Ezio, welcome. First problem I'm seeing, and Caitlin tried to warn me about this, but it's okay. My chat's not showing up on screen. So that's okay. Another thing is,
won't be in the VOD. Oh well.
My top banner right here is not doing its thing. So I either need to figure out a way to connect my YouTube to stream elements, or I need to, that's a future Mario problem, right? That's something I'll do tomorrow.
I think also if you do a YouTube live session, when you watch the VOD back after it's already recorded, the chat replays automatically.
Yeah.
Like the chat room is still there, and it things appear in the same order and time frame that they originally
that's
did.
Cool. I like that, because then they'll, if I just start randomly talking to chat, they'll be like, I think Twitch does the same thing. So that's cool. They'll see what chat said, or it doesn't look like I just start hearing things and speaking out to it. Okay, but anyways, we're here. We'll roll with the punches. Today. Let me tell you about today. So we are. Jeff reminded me. This is kind of old news, but it's something that I'm glad that Jeff is willing to talk about with me. So we had some directors and some people speak out in the past. Most recently, the guy who is directing Dune. What's his name?
Denis Villeneuve.
Okay. Denis. Say that again. I'm so sorry.
So I'll write it in the chat, but it's Denis. So you we would say Dennis, but he's French, I believe. So it's Denis.
Denis.
And then his last name looks like Villeneuve, but just say Ville, and then the Neuve just kind of falls off. So it's Denis Villeneuve. Okay. It's like you don't pronounce the V; it just kind of softly fades out. Denis Villeneuve.
Interesting. Okay, so Denis Villeneuve. Okay, all right. You're gonna you know how I am about this kind of stuff, so you're probably gonna have to correct me a couple more times with that. But we're gonna go with it. So he recently said that the MCU, or oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. Another digital difficulty. I'm streaming on OBS, but OBS does not. I don't know if this is something that Kate accidentally did or what, but OBS does not have the chat up on it. So the way I initially had my screen set up, that Caitlin forced me to change, was the most efficient way for me to do this. Hold on, I have to move things around now so that I can make sure I'm interacting with chat. Okay, we're good now. So, he recently sent out a tweet of saying that the Marvel movies are copy and paste. They're just, you take a Marvel movie and you just copy and paste it. I can see where the sentiment's coming from, but he's not the only director that's spoken out against Marvel movies.
Yeah. We had good old Marty Scorsese a while back saying that I think Scorsese technically was just talking about superheroes in general. I don't recall if he was specifically targeting Marvel.
That's fine.
But I do also remember him saying he tried to watch and I'm paraphrasing, but he tried to watch one of them once and couldn't do it. So it's yeah, he made this big bold statement, but he also blatantly said like I didn't even watch an entire one. So it's like, well, okay, cool. Like it's and again, like I look at that where it's like, all right, it's fucking Martin Scorsese like saying some stuff about who cares?
Yeah.
Like move on.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
Denis Villeneuve, I think, is in a different territory because even though he has not yet technically made a superhero movie, he makes these big kind of high budget, high concept, playing in the genres of sci-fi, little bit of fantasy, but he makes these big kind of spectacle movies. And I think where he's coming from is like, no, 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 no. What I'm doing is like art, and what they're doing is like making money.
Like making a product.
Yeah, or yeah, like making a product because
Yeah.
it's like his movies make a lot of money as well, and I think we can all predict that, obviously COVID and everything willing, like Dune is gonna make a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
So
The Okay, so what projects has he worked on in the past?
I'm glad you asked. So he did Arrival, which I still have not seen.
Okay.
But it was
I don't
like
think I've seen
Amy
that one.
Adams talks to aliens and that sort of thing. He also directed Blade Runner 2049, which was the sequel to Blade Runner.
I
Many
did see
say
that.
is like one of the greatest movies ever made. And my computer just froze, so I can't pull up his IMDb.
That's fantastic.
Because I want to say other movies, but I want to make sure that I am correct before I say them. So Mario, vamp, while I figure out why.
Okay, it sounds like Jeff's entire system is dying. So the what I find interesting is one, I'm not saying that directors or people in the industry shouldn't speak their opinion, right? Like they can say whatever they want. Honestly, it doesn't bother me either way. At the end of the day, it can be seen as an opinion, or it can be seen however you want to say it. I think he's back.
Oh, okay.
I think it is. I think it's interesting. And I think like with people in those positions, you want to be kind of like careful because if you're someone with high like reputation, you say Marvel movies are bad. I feel like you're kind of doing a disservice to like people in the industry or people that do work on it, because obviously you're in the industry and you're part of the business, so the things that some people have to go through to make these things happen. And to say that they're bad, you're kind of talking against all the people that put a lot of like passion and love and hard work into it. Not only that, like there's a difference between saying I don't like Marvel films and then just saying Marvel films are bad, right? Like you're trying to put a statement, you're trying to put like a stamp of approval or a stamp like you're trying to label this as, or these are things that shouldn't be remembered in history. And I think whenever you go into that territory, like that's like where the responsibility kind of comes in. That's why people probably like look at you, and I'm like, well, if you're gonna say that the Marvel films are copy and paste, but not understand, but then you yourself are going through and doing films that are similar, and what I think is real funny is Denis
Denis.
Villeneuve.
The thing that connects your thigh to your shin, Denis.
Yeah, I think that's how could I forget that thing? Denis. I see what you did there. That took me way longer. I thought you were actually using like a Latin
I feel better
terminology
about making a
word.
lame dad joke now that it took you a second to scroll up on it.
Yep. That did take me a minute to catch. So what I find funny is he's talking about how he makes art and how or he says that they're doing copy and paste. And this isn't me just like I don't want this to come off as me like attacking this guy and saying, "Oh, he shouldn't have said that ever," or blah blah blah. I think it's kind of ironic, and it makes me kind of. I almost think it's a publicity stunt. Honestly, I almost think it's just a way to get attention and get people moving towards Dune, because Dune, one, doesn't have the best reputation, and two, has a very niche audience.
Well, it also is an extremely important movie for Warner Brothers right now because I mean, first of all, just because it's a big, gigantic, expensive movie and they would like to make their money back, as well as a healthy amount of profit on top of that. But because the property that it's based on is so dense and sprawling, this is part one. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how widely that is known, but the movie Dune is only half of the source material that it's based on, and they are like pulling their hair out hoping that it makes enough money to justify making the rest of the movie, essentially.
Yeah. So okay. So because this movie is only half of the first book, it's not even the entire.
Right.
It's not even the entire first book. It's only half of it. So.
Right.
And this is my thing. Is like, if you watch the trailers, when we did our trailer podcast, if you go back and you watch that video, or you go back and you listen to that podcast, I compare the 1980s, 1990s Dune to the one that's coming out this year of 2021, and they're showing a lot of similarities. They're showing a lot of homages, but like just like, hey, you know, if you were fans of the old Dune, don't worry, we're using kind of the same cinematography and we're doing kind of the same stuff. It's gonna be a different story that's gonna take, you know, and they're doing a lot of the same scenes, and it's like, how are you gonna get onto Marvel for copying and pasting? But then you're gonna go and you're gonna like blatantly use like the same type of material. And I'm not saying it's bad to use that type of material. I'm just saying, obviously you understand why they're doing it, and I don't think he was trying to down talk Marvel at all. I genuinely think this was like, if I talk about Marvel, I'm gonna get, like, eyes are gonna be put on me, because there's no way you could post something out like that and not expect people to have a response, because that's just what you do, right? Like sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll say something on stream, on chat, and just to get a response from people, and I play around with it. That's how I engage with my chat, is by saying stuff like crazy things like that. Like I will purposely just talk bad about PC on stream, and people, I'll be like, yeah, console like is way better. PC, there's a couple of good things, but it's not that great. It's not worth it. And I will get people coming at me, but you know what? It sparks conversations. I talk to them. We talk to each other. We have a moment, and then I tell them like, nah, guys, you know, I'm doing my thing. You know, I'm obviously playing on a PC right now. So,
yeah.
And I really do believe that this is kind of what that is.
I agree with you that I think the thing for me that we also have to address is that this quote was taken from a print interview. This was not him on camera saying these things. It was, he said them to a reporter or to a journalist, who then put it in the context of a written article.
I thought he tweeted it.
No, it was an interview that he did with somebody, but the quotes then blew up on Twitter, where it was like that was the headline. It was like
That's
a clickbaity
weird
thing where people were like retweeting the article. So I think
what's,
to your credit, like, the thing that we have to address is like context is not part of this. We don't know how he said it. We don't know kind of the vibe that he was trying to give off. The other thing that I just wanted to mention was, for me personally, I don't have a problem with anything that he said.
Neither do I.
The thing that kind of, I hate using the word trigger because it comes with so many connotations these days. But the thing that triggered in my brain when I started seeing the headline was, oh my God, the reaction to this. Like, I don't have a problem with Denis Villeneuve saying whatever he wants to say. Same thing with Scorsese. It's like, guys, like filmmakers say things, but I knew that certain factions of the fan base were going to take this in context or out of context or whatever, just be like, oh, who the fuck is this guy? He's talking shit. Da, da, da. And it's like, no, guys, he's not talking shit. But of course, you can't talk to certain fans that way because they just. And so my thing was more of like, my reaction to this was like, dude, I don't care what your opinion is. Like, have your opinion, that's fine. But I think that filmmakers need to understand that when you say stuff, it will absolutely be taken out of context. Like, we remember WandaVision when Paul Bettany was like, "Oh my god, you guys, there's a cameo in the last episode, and I got to do a scene with an actor, and boy, oh boy, it's pretty amazing stuff." And he was making a joke because he was talking about the scenes that he did with himself, you know, because he plays regular Vision and White Vision, da da da, and people like slaughtered him online for it, to the point that like they got him an emergency interview on Good Morning America on the day that episode aired, where he can be like, guys, I'm sorry, it was a joke, I wasn't thinking, ha ha ha. But it's like, yeah, you gotta understand that like I mean, Mario, there are smart fans like me and you who know that, you know, filmmakers and actors and people just be shooting the shit sometimes. Like, we don't care.
Yeah.
But there are some people who get really freaking angry about this stuff, and they potentially act irrationally after they read something, after they hear something. And so, to me, that's kind of what this conversation about is like, filmmakers, it's great for you to have opinions, but maybe just be aware that you have certain fans who will act up, just act a fool sometimes.
Right. And you know, that's kind of what I was trying, and you said it probably better than me, is that's kind of what I was trying to say earlier. Was, yeah, like, I think whenever someone says something and the way you say it, you have to understand, whenever you say it this way, especially with as big as you are, there is kind of like this like responsibility behind it. But at the same time, you should be able to say whatever you want, especially here, and not be not have to worry about people hating you for it. And it's your opinion, right? Like, it's so like I think with Scorsese, you know, he was putting his stamp on something, and a lot of people will take that to heart. A lot of people will do that. Let me get this second hydrate in real quick. I gotta figure out how to do the emotes. I gotta figure out how to put chat on screen. I gotta figure out how to get my Stream Elements to connect with my... I think if I just go to Stream Elements and I connect it with YouTube, everything will be fixed. But then we gotta... I don't even know if this... I don't think YouTube has ways to interact with chat like how Twitch does, and I think that's something YouTube is going to be faulting at. But they're dumping a lot of money into this. Google's dumping a lot of money into this, so I'm pretty sure pretty sure we'll get some good stuff later on. But as a community, we'll make sure we stay on top of that. Don't worry, I'll keep up with the traditions. I gotta figure out how to change my name on chat so I don't actually... So it's actually X and not my real name. Yeah, you're gonna have to... I had to figure out that too. So it's gonna be your YouTube thing, or it's gonna be whatever your Google account is connected to your YouTube. So you'd go to your Google settings for that account, and you would change like your first and last name. So like you can get rid of your last name and just put like whatever name you want in your first name, whatever tag or whatever on there. But you should be good. See how like Digital Heroes spaced out? It's because it's treating it like an actual name. I need to go back there and fix it.
I see.
It's like it's treating it like it's an actual, like, oh, that's your first, middle, and last name is Digital Hero 101. I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. And you know, like, whenever you do something like that, whenever you say, like, I'm going to use my PCs thing again. If I say PCs, it's different if I say I don't like PCs and that's it, right? But then if I say PCs are bad, right? Or if I say I think PCs are
Right.
bad compared to PCs are bad, I am putting a now it's got both. Nice. I'm putting I'm putting my own stamp on there, and I'm basically making a statement, and especially if I have people that listen to what I say, they might take that and put that somewhere else, and so I think there is sort of this like weird responsibility that comes with the weight of what you say, but at the same time, reverse that. People shouldn't take it to heart so closely. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
people shouldn't. Anyways, so how do we traverse this? Traverse. That's the word I'm looking for. How do we traverse this?
Yes.
I think, like, when it comes to the MCU, and obviously there's a lot of people working on it. There's a lot of talented actors and actresses that are going towards it. There's it's been going on for over a decade, and it's the same story that's just been continuing and evolving and growing. And whenever you want to look at any film, and today we're just going to specifically talk about the MCU, and we're gonna go off of these guys and what they said. And Jeff, feel free to pivot however way you want. I think that the MCU, what it does as films is I can understand where Denis is saying that they're copy and paste, but and that's kind of like superhero films are kind of, because you have to do superhero origins for everyone, and they're kind of using the same. A lot of times you hear people say, "Oh, well, Marvel or Disney's very like formulaic. It's a formula," and for that I say, if it ain't broke, right? I think
Right.
So here's the thing with Star Wars. You can compare Star Wars to the Marvel Cinematic, and very easily, especially since they're owned by the same conglomerate. I'm trying to use all these words today that I can't say apparently. Since they're owned by the same company now. But you look at Star Wars, and recently in the Star Wars community, so I'm going to bring up another name. There was a book that was written by. I really should be better at doing my homework.
George Lucas's ex-wife, right?
Yes, George Lucas's ex-wife.
Who edited A New Hope.
She edited the original films, because if it wasn't for her, because they were just going to have Emperor Palpatine fall down the reactor and go splat. But she was like, no, let's like have this huge explosion, and let's make the whole Death Star like get all blue and stuff after he falls down the pit. She was the reason Emperor Palpatine got like this huge cinematic explosion. But she recently said about Star Wars, so this is we're trekking away a little bit, but it's gonna come back to it. She recently said how like she saw the prequels, she saw Episode 1, Phantom Menace, and
I'm super excited because it's Star Wars related, and I already know what you're about to say. Like, I followed this story away from you, and you're the person I go to for all my Star Wars shit.
Oh man, you might know more in the story than me then, because I saw it, but I delved down the rabbit hole a little bit, but I didn't get to do it enough, more than I wanted to. Because again, I've had a busy week with my birthday and all this other stuff that's going on.
Yeah. Marsha Lucas.
Marsha Lucas, thank you, Marsha.
Yes.
She said that she cried when she saw Phantom Menace, and I don't think they were tears of joy. I think she was very much like upset with where the franchise was going, and she thought she was going to go into Phantom Menace and see it. She was going to see Anakin dismantling the Jedi Order from within, and now we kind of got that in the third film, but the people thought that's where it was going to start, and that's what the next trilogies were going to be, was Anakin figuring out why the Jedi Order is just no good and how they should. But instead we got young Anakin, and we got this, and we got. Now, I grew up on the prequel trilogies, and growing up on the prequel trilogies, I have this strange nostalgic love and passion for them, but I can definitely see, because the sequel trilogies are the equivalent of the prequel trilogies for those people, for me. And she kind of had the same sentiments with the sequel trilogies. She was saying that the executives did not understand Star Wars. They didn't understand
Yes.
the heart of Star Wars. They didn't understand the story of the Skywalkers, and they didn't understand, like, they killed. She didn't like that they killed off Han Solo. She didn't like that how Luke was died and stuff. Like, they took the brand and the story of Star Wars and they made it something else. And the reason I brought up the fact that she credited the prequel things is for one of two things. So this is someone that worked on the original films. So a lot of Star Wars fans, we disagree about a lot of things, but we can all really agree that we love the original trilogy. She didn't like the fact that they cut George Lucas out because he was supposed to be like a consultant whenever they were making the sequels. And once they gained ownership, they said, "Yeah, we're good. Thank you."
That all went away.
That all went away. The whole thing about being a consultant, the whole thing about having some say in the films. And if you like the sequel trilogies, I like aspects of the sequel trilogy as well. But Rise of Skywalker, I did not like it. I didn't like Rise of Skywalker. And if you like the sequel trilogies, that's the power to you. That's good. There's good. But what I'm getting at is that there are people in the industry that will say something, and a lot of people will hold on to that, and a lot of people will have they will have sway, or it will influence the minds of people. And sometimes it is it's very much like, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's very much needed. It's very much, I think, like having Marsha Lucas speak out and that kind of thing kind of helps a lot of fans that were in denial or that were struggling with the sequel movies.
Right.
But then if you compare her experience, because she actually worked on the film, she actually has a hand in the project. Her saying that is different than Scorsese saying that Marvel films are bad, right? Because or superhero films, I shouldn't say Marvel. Superhero films are bad because he doesn't really have his hand in the jar. He's expressing an opinion, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, as fans, you should, I'm not saying you should do your homework and like, but I'm saying, like, don't be so ready to jump on the hate train just yet. And I think there are times where it's appropriate. I think whenever, like, Marsha Lucas speaks out, it's a little more appropriate for you to be a little more melancholy about the situation. However, whenever you have someone like Denis speak out, I feel bad because I'm not saying his last name because I don't know him in real. What's his last name again?
Villeneuve.
Whenever you have someone like Villeneuve speak out, then again, I don't think that's a place where anger needs to come up. I don't think there's a place where you need to be, quote unquote, triggered. Because he doesn't really, his hand's not in the pot there. And well, hold on, I take that back. It kind of is. Yeah. It kind of is. And for him to say, it kind of makes him seem hypocritical or ironic, but I think, like, the reason I'm saying his hand is not in the pot in this scenario is because he's specifically talking about Marvel. He's not talking about, like, superhero films. He's talking about Marvel, and I can see where that sentiment's coming from because almost everyone that I've spoken to has, like, agreed that Marvel has a very formulaic way of doing things.
Well, they absolutely do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, cinematography-wise, I can't tell the difference, really.
That's that's very true.
Like, you can look at you can look at the way that the camera moves, and technically you can look at, like, the lighting setup, but specifically in terms of the color timing, like the color correction process, they all look exactly the same. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, like, I absolutely agree with him on, because in the interview he says something. I had it up. I'm gonna find it real quick. if we're talking about Marvel, the thing is, all these films are made from the same mold. Some filmmakers can add a little color to it, but they're all cast in the same factory.
Yeah.
And that I 100% agree with.
Yeah,
like,
I
you
can agree
look
with
at
that.
Shang-Chi and you can look at and even though we haven't seen the entirety of Eternals yet, like you can look at some of those shots and be like, oh yeah, two directors worked on both of these movies, but in terms of the color correction, it's like, oh yeah, these are clearly part of the same continuity, part of the same, like these are the same story essentially.
In a way, I think this is. I am in no way trying to rebuttal what Venu. I'm gonna write this down. Vani.
Yeah.
So instead of Vani. I got this. I'm thinking of your dad joke, and I'm just putting a V in front of it.
Well, but it's a D though. It's a D as in dog.
No,
Denis.
not Denis. His last name, because I wanna address him by his last name.
Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve.
Just think about it phonetically. Yeah,
Villeneuve.
Like the word villa. Like you go on vacation and you stay at a nice villa, and then just put the word new at the end of it. Denis Villeneuve.
No, I have the worst short-term memory, so I wrote it down on a sticky note, and it's going like right on my computer, right here.
No worries, man.
Boom. All right, it's there. Thank you for your patience, Jeff.
No, you're good, dude.
I don't want to disrespect the guy and stuff like that, so I'm trying to. Okay, so Denis Villeneuve, now I lost my train of thought. I'm not trying to rebuttal what he's saying with what I'm saying. I think I'm sure they do it on purpose. I'm pretty sure they do that on purpose because the movies look uniform. Because then you can watch all the movies. Like, it almost gives you this idea, like, oh, they're all connected still, right? Like, it's this kind of like the small little trick that's going on in your brain that's telling you that they're all still connected.
Yeah, and I think because again, like for my money, the issue that I have is like, who cares what Denis Villeneuve has to say about the MCU? And I would even go further and say, like, hey, Denis, like, why do you think it's necessary to state on record what you think about the MCU? Like, they make the movies the way that they make movies. You make movies the way that you make movies. Let's all just coexist. Like, we're all different types of people making different types of movies, you know? And like, same thing with Christopher Nolan, who, this is a whole other thing that we won't get into because it's not relevant to the topic, but like, Christopher Nolan has his opinions about the way that movies should be made, and I'm like, hey, that's great, Christopher Nolan. I used to like you, but I don't like you anymore. But I'm not gonna frickin'
Ooh, can we open up that jar of worms right now?
I feel like, I just really feel like Christopher Nolan is extremely pretentious, and he like my feet and. I don't care. Like, it's weird. Like, I've found myself getting progressively more angry about things going on in the movie industry, and like, ooh, I read this article. Like, okay, fuck, we're gonna open a whole other can of worms real quick.
Okay, let's do it.
So the fucking and we joked about it at your birthday party because we were playing Mario Kart, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna play Chris Pratt. Dude, I don't think I like Chris Pratt anymore, because to me he just seems like a guy who has just gotten so big for his britches, and I don't think he's an asshole or like a douchebag or anything. Like, he's not that, archetype, but it's like when I saw the announcement that Chris Pratt had been cast as Mario in a new animated Mario movie, I had to phrase it that way just in case people listening didn't know what we were talking about, which, let's be honest, if they're listening to your podcast, they know. It's like I read that casting and I was like, yeah, because he's Hollywood's golden boy. He fucking gets everything. Why not? Like, he's a Guardian of the Galaxy. He's in Jurassic World, which has its own like third installment coming out next year or later this year. I don't fucking remember. Who gives a shit? But it's like, really, like Chris, like just because he's a movie star,
yeah,
like because he like, and again, I'm not saying like Because the thing that happened with that is I saw a shit ton of people, and this is kind of what we're talking about actually,
Yeah, it
is the fan
fits.
reaction. Is people were so enraged that because it directly ties into the fact that Chris Martinet, who has voiced Mario in the video games for like the past 20 plus years or whatever, is in the movie. He's just playing some sort of top secret cameo, or he's doing like his voice will be in the movie. He's just not playing Mario. Like it's going to be a little Easter egg cameo type thing. And people are like, "What the fuck, dude? Like you have Chris Martinet like right there, but you're gonna fucking cast Chris Pratt? Like what the fuck are you thinking? This is insane!" Like the amount of times I saw the word or the sentence "This is insane" all caps, or "What were they thinking" all caps. I'm thinking like, you guys have seen animated movies before, right? like this is what happens.
Yeah.
Like, and we kind of talked about this with Invincible. It's like, yeah, you have, J.K. Simmons and the dude from The Walking Dead and all these people, and it's like, oh, but there's also Kevin Michael Richardson and Fred Tatasciore and like all of these voice actors who have been logging in years and years and years of work on video games and anime dubs and animated movies. So it's like you have this great collective of, okay, here are celebrities, but we're also going to balance it with, voice actors that are known in the voice acting community.
Right.
And so I'm looking at the reaction to this Mario movie, and it's like, guys, this is what happens. Like,
Yeah.
voice actors don't get cast in the Lego movie or Frozen or fucking any number of these. Like, hey, nobody was like, oh man, how come you're going to cast The Rock in a Disney movie, man? You got to get like so and so who did. You got to get Clancy Brown because he was in SpongeBob or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's this thing of like, guys, this is how it's fucking done. But anyway, that's actually, yeah, that is on point. Going back to my thing, I'm taking control. I'm stealing the show for a quick second.
No,
until,
you're good.
I can circle back and actually answer the first question you asked me 45 minutes ago.
I don't want to I don't want to distract you. Keep going.
But I'm just looking at this Chris Pratt thing, and it's funny that there's an image that sticks in my mind that makes me realize I'm going down this like downward spiral rabbit hole of I am angry nerd fanboy again. But I am suddenly reminded of the end credits of Avengers Endgame. Follow me here. So if you remember, there's like that big, huge, like long credit sequence because we're like it's a huge cast of like 500 freaking people, and then we get towards the end of it, and it's like with Michelle Pfeiffer, with Robert Redford, with Chris Pratt, and I'm like, wait a minute, why the fuck does Chris Pratt get the with credit? Because if you know anything about credits, like you have the names of the actors, and sometimes you have the with so and so, and then there's also the elusive and so, and that's typically reserved for, okay, it's like here's an actor of like of renown and great royalty. There's like a regal thing that comes with when you see an actor's name in the credits and they have the word with preceding it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I'm like looking at it and I'm like, okay, yeah, like Michelle Pfeiffer, I get, she's like legendary. Robert Redford, I get, he's freaking legendary. Fucking Chris Pratt? And it's not to say that like he doesn't deserve to have a with credit, but it's like he's one of the main characters in this universe. Like, and obviously, when you get to the end, like there's the big sort of like thing with Mark Ruffalo and Scarlett Johansson and like the Avengers where they have like their signatures show up and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But and like that makes sense because like that's them kind of signing off like, hey, this is the end of the Avengers as we know it. That makes sense.
Right.
But Chris Pratt, I'm like, he's the lead in his own sub franchise of this bigger franchise. And so it just became this thing of like, oh my God, I don't like why? Like, why is and so to circle back, it's like, why is Chris Pratt playing Mario? Like find a different actor who makes sense to play a fucking 50-year-old plumber, or like whatever age Mario is supposed to be in the context of this movie. Like it just doesn't make sense. He's not right for that role. I don't. you're casting him because he's freaking Chris Pratt, and that's weird. I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, so Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan, there was this whole thing with HBO Max announcing their plans for 2021. This is going back like, a year, I guess a year at this point, because it was late in 2020 when they made the announcement that Warner Brothers made the announcement, hey, all of our movies that are coming out next year are going to simul-release day and date on HBO Max.
Okay.
And that's why we've been able to like watch all of the Warner Brothers movies on TV at home because theaters are closed and blah, 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 blah. Christopher Nolan didn't like that. He thought that was, and to his credit, the way that Warner Brothers did this was it was kind of similar to the whole Disney Scarlett Johansson Black Widow thing where they just announced it. They had not talked to anybody. They had not redone contracts, but they announced it, and then they immediately called up Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot to talk about Wonder Woman 1984 and be like, hey guys, here's what we're doing. Like, can we cut you a check for $10 million a piece?
Holy crap.
And Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins were like, yeah, sure, whatever. Because, they're not going to make the points on the box office and all that kind of stuff. So, like, they got on the phones and they hit the pavement and they were like, blah, 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 blah. Like, we're sorry, but this is what we have to do because of the pandemic, blah, 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 blah. Christopher Nolan steps up on his freaking soapbox and he's like,
I remember
that's not how you treat filmmakers and stars. To which, like you talk about people harping on the one thing that the person said. I'm about to harp so freaking hard of Christopher Nolan. I'm sorry, stars? Like, so you're saying you're better than us. You're saying that John... Because his thing was, like, he was talking about this because he was still doing press for Tenet. Like, keep in mind, Tenet had already been in theaters and done its thing. His movie is not affected by HBO Max. He's like, his movie's done. It's already been in theaters. And that was the other thing that, like, really pissed me off was, like, hey, Warner Brothers is, like, trying to go with the flow here. Like, we're still in lockdown and quarantine and movie theaters are barely open. They're trying to figure out a way to make it work given the circumstances of the world right now. But cut to 6 months earlier when Christopher Nolan is like, my movie must be in theaters. Like, and it must come out now. People need to see this movie. That was the weird... Like, Tenet did not do... It bombed.
Yeah.
At the box office. Which, again, is like... Again, to Christopher Nolan's credit, like, people were like, well, yeah, because the movie fucking sucked. I knew it was going to... And it's like, no, it bombed because nobody went to the theaters. Because we were all in lockdown, motherfuckers. But anyway, I'm getting too distracted. My point is like, I just don't like Christopher Nolan. He's gotten on his soapbox about, like... Because he has now severed all ties. He has washed his hands of Warner Brothers, and he's now over at Universal to kind of start a whole career with them. And it's like, dude, like, you were not affected by what they did whatsoever. And he's just kind of in this mindset of, well, they did a thing that I disagree with, so I'm just gonna move out. And it's like, it just sounds like a disgruntled teenager. Like, literally, like, well, I don't like the way that mom and dad are running things, so I'm going to pack my bags and go out on my own. And it's like, dude, power to you. But, like, and again, I know I'm about to fall on the sword.
Do you think...
But, like, Tenet is the movie you're going to do this for? Like, bro. Like, again, if you like Tenet, that's awesome, but... That movie? That's the one you're gonna be like, this is the most important movie in all of existence, and like.
Do you think if he would have addressed it differently? Do you think if he hadn't pushed his movie, you think that would have like affected differently? If it hadn't surrounded himself?
Because again, and the reason like I really harp on him in terms of like having this pretentious like ego. Is because his whole thing with Tenet was it had to be in theaters, and people were trying to work it out. Like, okay, well, what if because drive-ins, like I'm sure you heard about this as well as everybody else. Like, drive-ins had a big resurgence last year because that was a way to see a movie on the big screen in a somewhat safe environment. You're confined only to your vehicle. Mm-hmm. You're not literally breathing the same air as the people around you. And his thing was, no, you don't go to a drive-in to see my film, because the way that drive-ins work is you like tune into a radio station that syncs up with the radio station that the audio of the movie is streaming to.
Right.
And that's how you hear the audio. You hear it through your car system. And Christopher Nolan is like, well, some people don't have good sound systems in their cars, so that's not the way that they should experience my movie.
Oh,
and I'm
this
like,
dude.
And again, so here's my big thing with him, because his thing is you must see it on the big screen in an approved theater. And my thing is like, so why do all of your movies go to DVD and Blu-ray?
Jeez.
Not everybody has a home theater system. Not everybody has a freaking 65-inch television or whatever. Not everybody has a 4K TV. Like, if you really like, and that's my thing. If you really believed in the bullshit that's coming out of your mouth, none of your movies would be released on physical media. Let alone, dude, it's possible to watch Tenet on an iPod.
Yeah,
because it's available on iTunes.
So chat's over here saying, I didn't know that movie. I didn't know what that movie was. I kept calling it the COVID movie. That's hilarious. And you know what's funny is, you want to know, and here's the reason. Here's the scummy reason, which now I'm understanding your point. So I think like what you're saying, yeah, because he pushed his movie so hard, that was his downfall. That was definitely his downfall. And these other guys, except for Villeneuve. I think Villeneuve is almost doing the same thing that Christopher Nolan's doing. And here's the thing. I'm going to discredit myself real quick. I did not read the report. So but Villeneuve's doing it he was doing that interview for his movie, right? For Dune?
Yes. And to be fair, the journalist basically asked them, or asked him directly, like, what are your thoughts on the MCU and why big budget movies are still relevant when they're coming from master storytellers? So that was kind of the separation. He was like, well, the MCU is doing this thing, but quote unquote master storytellers are doing this other thing.
Okay. So he
cites Christopher Nolan as well as Alfonso Cuarón, saying like, Marvel's doing their thing, but like people like me and Christopher Nolan and Alfonso Cuarón, like we're making like artistic big movies.
Okay.
Which is like,
okay.
Again, like
now
why
I can.
anything?
Yeah. Why even take it that far? Yeah, I don't like that. Again, what we said before is he can say whatever he wants. It's not going to ruin my day. Okay. Now I have a better picture of what's being said and what's being done. Yes. Okay. I'm on board with you right now, Jeff. I'm on board. Yeah, and like with Christopher Nolan, I'm gonna finish my point that I was saying earlier. This really kind of shoots him in the foot. Now, whether he wanted it to be this way or not, I can't say. But a lot of the times, before streaming services became such a thing, DVDs, and as I say this, Blockbusters is on the screen right now. DVDs and straight to video.
Oh, we must be to Captain Marvel then.
Yeah, we are. They made more money than theaters. DVDs would make more money, or that was always something. If you didn't do great on the theater, like the opening weekend or box office weekday or whatever, the DVDs would make up for it. You just knew, oh, okay, the CDs and DVDs we're gonna make our money. Sometimes, if not a lot of times, it happened more often, and so this transition to streaming service is hurting a lot of movie makers. It's hurting the movie industry actually, because the like Warner Brothers and Disney, the money's going straight to them now and not going back to like the actors, are because they're keeping old deals. They're signing up for old contracts as if DVDs and Blu-rays and all that stuff is still going to make a lot of profit, but Disney, Warner Brothers, and them are evolving and transitioning with how technology is going and fixing up their their own ways of making money to how people are doing it too. Let me see what chat's saying right now. But like Dune is also based off a book. He didn't do anything with that storytelling. And that's the whole reason we're having this conversation, right? Like I love that. I'm going to get to that after I say what I'm going to say right here. If he stayed true to the source material. Yeah, it's not right. How are you going to That's my biggest thing. Is how are you going
to that like if the thing is we have to like this is the type of book where you don't fuck around with it. You have to stay true to the source material. Isn't that cut and paste?
Right. Isn't that what Marvel's doing? They're taking because if you what makes the MCU great is how true, I'm not going to say, when I say true, how honorable they are to the comics. And when I say honorable, I'm not saying they're reciting the comics one for one. They're putting a modern twist to the comics. And obviously it takes place in the Ultimate Universe, which means it's not the canon timeline for the comic book universe. But they honor the comics so well. There's so many things. There's so many stories. There's so many characters that they put tribute to and they take inspiration from, and that they make it work, right? And you did the same thing with your Dune trailer, with your Dune thing. Like, watch the Dune trailer. Watch the Dune trailer that's been put out, and then go watch the 1980s Dune trailer. They are nearly 1-to-1. Why? Is because you are honoring the book. You're honoring the previous source material. You are, what Jeff just said, copying and pasting. Now, what is it that artists say? They say, we do not copy, we do not steal, we are inspired. All right? You are inspired by this thing. That is what they are doing in the Marvel Universe. So now, for him to say that, now if he was talking about the cinematography, like what me and Jeff were talking about earlier, I know I didn't get to finish my thought. I might not finish it because I'm on this new train. But if he was talking about the cinematography and stuff like that, yes, I would agree wholeheartedly. But I have to disagree with the whole like the storytelling, because they're taking inspiration from this story and they're making it their thing, and they're obviously going to keep making these movies, right? And to me, like, I almost do the same thing every week. All right. I'm not going to put myself on a high horse or anything like that. But so, like, for my personal experience, like I'm a dungeon master. You can always catch my games live on Fridays. Now going to be transitioning to YouTube if you like, at Digital Hero 101. Listen to us on your podcast of choice. That's a shameless plug. And as a DM, I take inspiration from a lot of stories that I love and a lot of stories that I know, and I rework them, and it's hard to come up with completely creative new ideas. But when you are obviously building a franchise, when you're building a brand that is already known to the public, this is why I brought up Star Wars earlier. This is another reason why I brought up Star Wars. I'm so sorry, Jeff. Hold on. I'm taking the show. I'm stealing the show for a second.
Go for it.
Okay.
For like an hour, and we've only been streaming for 50-something minutes. So
the freaking okay. You do not take a brand that's already been established in the world by fans. You do not cater to those fans and then give them something completely new. I'm going to use a horrible analogy to do this. If I were to say, I'm going to display the color blue, I'm going to take the color blue and I'm going to display it, and we're going to make a huge tribute to blue, and we're going to give blue for 10 years. It's going to be nothing but blue. It's going to be blue, 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 blue. And then I show up with the color red, and I'm like, this is blue. This is the blue that we all know and love, but with a twist. He's now edgier. He's now filled with bloodlust. This is blue, but in modern day. Like, people are going to be pissed. They're going to be like, what happened to blue? This is such a dumb analogy.
You're not wrong, though. You're not wrong.
Hold on, what is chat saying? And in my opinion, as Dune fan, that book was written so well that the movie should be cut and paste from the book. So, I think me and Jeff should have. I think next week this could be our topic, Jeff. I'm gonna write it down or something. Like, adaptations. I think we did do a show on adaptations. This will be adaptations part 2, the evolution. Yeah, I think there's some movies. If you look at a movie that I've talked about from time to time, Rosemary's Baby, Rosemary's Child, Rosemary's Baby. She is
Baby,
that.
yes.
That movie is a cut and paste of the book. I mean, like almost 1-to-1. Like if you watch the movie, you basically read the book, and I think that is okay. You know, that's very. I don't want to give too much credit to the director because he's a piece of work, but you know that's very much that works. And I think like if you have, like Lord of the Rings is here's another example where like if Lord of the Rings was a 1-to-1 copy of the book, everyone would fall asleep during the movie. I love Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah,
I love Lord of the Rings, but I'm so glad that Peter Jackson put his own. He cut out a lot of stuff from those books because, oh my gosh, those books. Chat says dumb or perfect analogy. Hey, you know what? Sometimes simplicity is the way to go. Okay, so where I'm going at with this analogy, we're going back to the blue and red. You don't take a property. You take a property like Marvel, okay, and you don't start making it like DC. You don't start making it like you don't make it into something else. You stay true to what people fell in love with the first place. So what you take inspiration from it. Yes, some things are going to be copied, but you innovate where you can't create, right? And that's why these new films have such a twist to it. This is where Star Wars failed. The sequels, and it's really hard for me to say this. So, like, Jeff, I'm going to need you to back me up, all right? I'm going to need you to, like, be my hype man or something. I don't like saying this, and it's hard for me to say this, but this is why it's so important that Marsha Lucas came out and said something. Because she specifically said that Kathleen Kennedy had a pro-female agenda and that they focused too much on hitting their agendas and they were focusing too much on being pro-female and this and that. And it's like, it's hard for me as a guy to say that because I'm wholly and heartedly pro-female. I honestly don't care if the main character in Star Wars is a guy or a girl. Like, do not care. I am super happy if they are a girl. I'm extra happy if they're a black girl. But that's my biased opinion, right?
Well, but and I'm looking at the Marsha Lucas interview here. You bring up a good point because she says, and I think it's and they think it's important to appeal to a woman's audience, so now their main character is this female who's supposed to have Jedi powers, but we don't know how she got the Jedi powers or who she is. Which is like, if you want to have this like pro-female agenda, thereby making a female protagonist, that's great. But you gotta fill that character in with something. You can't just be like, hey, she's a woman. Isn't that awesome? Like,
and that's...
No, she's gotta be compelling and dimensional.
Oh, I wanted to talk about... this brings up another topic I want to talk to you about, Jeff. But that does a disservice, not only to the franchise, but to women. Because now you're putting a woman in a role, and you're giving those naysayers like, see, women just ruin everything. It's like, no... You're putting her in these shoes that don't even fit her. Like, give her a great foundation and she will grow. So, like, because Star Wars did that, it was no longer honoring the original trilogies. It was no longer honoring the prequels. It was something new, and that's why the fans got divided. That's why the fans split. So when
I just want to quick add to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I think you're making a very important distinction here. Is it okay to do something new with Star Wars? Absolutely. That's what the fucking Mandalorian is.
Thank you.
But with the sequel trilogy, you're doing something new with Star Wars that is directly connected to the old Star Wars. That's where it becomes really, really tricky. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I can't think of somebody who did it correctly off the top of my head to prove that point. But that's the sort of quote unquote mistake that they made, where they're like, we want to do something new and fresh with Star Wars, so we're going to do a direct sequel to the original trilogy. And it's like, well, that's not new and fresh. It's directly tied to it, you motherfucker.
Like,
it's the opposite.
It's okay to give us something new, but if people have been fans of the series for 40 years prior to the sequel trilogy, why make something new? Why not just honor what was there before and continue that? So when Villeneuve tells me, when Denis Villeneuve says that these people are not master crafters or they're not artists, master storytellers, thank you, but they're not master storytellers of the art. Like, to me, that's like, dude, it's really hard to come up with something, but it's almost just as hard, if not harder sometimes, to stay true to what was there previously and succeed. And Star Wars is a perfect example of that. This is a perfect example of like failing because they attempted to do something. Okay, they didn't fail. They made buku amounts of money. When I say they failed, I mean they split their audience. Like, look how people almost universally agree that Star Wars fans are the worst fans now. And that sucks. I don't like having that reputation. Right? Nobody says shit about freaking Marvel fans. No one says anything about DC fans. Maybe that they're, tenacious, but no. Burn. Right. No. I'm sorry. I'm laughing at my own joke. But nobody says anything about those fans, but they talk bad about Star Wars fans. And I think they failed the fans in that regards. I like some of the sequel movies. As in 2 of them, but I do not. I do not think that. I think they could have done better to represent the films, and I'm so glad that Marcia Lucas comes out and says these things because, it does make me not feel crazy. It does make me feel like when I see all these people that love the films, I'm like, is there something wrong with me? Like, am I just too attached to something that isn't there anymore? Am I a boomer? But so I have to, with that sentiment, I have to disagree with Denis Villeneuve because he is. I think he's discrediting what he's doing right now.
So
he's discrediting himself.
So you said something earlier, like you brought up the fact that you're a dungeon master.
Yeah. And
suddenly it became clear to me, I think, where Denis Villeneuve was coming from when he said what he said about cut and paste and how, specifically the part in the article where he says directors can paint with different colors, but ultimately the product is cast in the same factory. It's like the same mold.
Yeah.
So you being a dungeon master and D&D in general, it's that interesting thing where it kind of becomes unclear at a certain point who is moving the story along. Is it you as the dungeon master? Is it us as the players? Like, so much of what happens to the characters obviously is the players.
Yeah.
But how the story progresses is it like I can know who Broxer is. I don't know what he's gonna do in a given situation until you put that situation in front of me.
Exactly.
So it's like a chicken or the egg kind of thing. Like, did Broxer do that because it was always in his DNA to do that from the beginning because of how I created him? Or did he do that because you presented something to me and it was like this instantaneous reaction kind of thing?
Right.
So we're talking about the DM versus the player, right?
Yeah.
What I think Denis Villeneuve is talking about is specifically the directors and how they get to say what they want to say.
Oh.
Because when you look at Shang-Chi, it's kind of destined Daniel Cretton. When you look at Eternals, it's kind of Chloe Zhao. When you look at I can't remember a single Marvel movie. Oh my god. When you look at Doctor Strange, it's kind of Scott Derrickson. When you look at Avengers, it's a lot of Joss Whedon because he also wrote the script.
Very
But
much Joss Whedon.
when you look at all of these movies, it's always Kevin Feige. And I think that's what he means by cut and paste.
Okay.
Where it's like, I think in his perspective, he's talking about how, like, unfair might be putting words into his mouth, but it's like, yeah, you hire a filmmaker to do a thing and put their stamp on it, but really it's Kevin Feige making the movie. Because again, like, when you look at the streamlined process of how the Marvel movies are made, like, yeah, it's Kevin Feige at the top, but it's also the fact that when a director is hired to come onto a movie, you have the same concept artists working on all the movies who are like drawing up the mock-ups of how the costumes are going to look and how the sets are going to look and how the ships and the props and like all this stuff. Like, concept artists are the same throughout the movies, even though different directors are working on the movies. All of the like action sequences where you have a lot of CGI elements and that sort of stuff, like all the CGI artists and the visual effects people are the same. They're the ones who are kind of coming up with these big elaborate set pieces before the fucking script has even been written. So I think that's what he's really talking about is, yes, you can have a director come in with a specific vision to work on a Marvel movie, but at the end of the day, it's really, they're just sort of one quadrant between Kevin Feige, the concept artist, and the visual effects team.
Okay. You definitely did
like,
open my eyes.
that's
The
fair.
D&D, that is very fair. Yeah, in that regards, that is very fair. And I know it sounds like I'm flip-flopping a lot. Honestly, I think I like just like delving into both extremes because I want to understand it from both sides. And this is what I do in my head. I'm basically just speaking and spilling everything that's in my head to the audience, so you guys are going to get both extremes of myself. But I think you put it fantastically for the Dungeons and Dragons analogy, because so instead of thinking of it like the chicken and the egg, we can imagine that the dungeon master is Kevin Feige and that the player is the director. The player, let's say, is making what's coming up. Taika Waititi's working on the next Thor movie, so Thor is the player.
It's like one-on-one D&D.
Right. So Thor wants Taika Waititi.
Where the players are never there; they just come in one after the other.
And then every once in a while, they get to put them all together.
It's like combat. We're in a combat encounter.
Well, but here's
we all
the thing.
roll for initiative, and now it's Taika's turn, and then it's the next person's turn.
So, like,
holy shit, the MCU is just D&D.
It's just D&D, dude. You don't know how, like, Dungeons and Dragons has ruined I can't look at the world the same. I watch TV, and I watch, like, movies, and I'll be like, oh, okay, that's the tank, that's the DPS, he's the bard, he's the, or I'll be like, oh, he failed his persuasion check. Oh, that's the deception check failure. Okay, there's the, oh, look at that insight. Oh, okay, look at it. I watch movies, and I was like, I break them down into Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, it's like one of my favorite memes to come out of Game of Thrones. You watch Game of Thrones, right? We've talked about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Is the episode where, spoilers for a show that everybody hates now, but when Arya kills the Night King, the very next day somebody wrote on Twitter, so apparently Arya rolled a natural 1 on her stealth check, and then immediately rolled a natural 20 on her sleight of hand, and I was like, oh, exactly what happened.
I actually remember that post. I've seen that post. That is that is fantastic. Okay, so like Taika's making Thor. Thor's going through so Taika is writing Thor's background and is writing all this stuff. However, he is in Kevin Feige's world. So Taika wants Thor to grow or to do something, but Kevin Feige puts these obstacles in his way, and Kevin Feige sees Thor. So they're both looking at Thor, and it's almost like a game of telephone, and they're both trying to get Thor to develop a certain way, but they have to do it in Kevin Feige's world while Taika Waititi is controlling him. And that is exactly what you were saying with, like, okay, well, the director has to work with the set pieces that get put up. The director has to work with, oh, well, this is what's going to happen in the next phase, or this is what's going to go on for this character, or they have to set him up to go here, or they have to make sure that this character ends up here to meet up the Avengers, and yada, yada. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Denis Villeneuve, if you're watching me on camera, you can see it as my eye hovers over to the sticky note that I've placed it on my Denis Villeneuve. He is the dungeon master and the player. So he literally is like, okay, I want these. He's writing a book. That's what it turns into at that point. If we interpret it that way, then I have to agree. I have to agree with what the guy's saying.
Yeah, and that's kind of where this is kind of a tangent, but still on topic. That's precisely why the DC EU fell apart. Is because the producers, like the people at the studio and the people who were kind of overseeing it, didn't have the vision. Zack Snyder was the guy with the vision. They put that was the player taking over for the DM, because they were like, "Hey, Zack, figure it out." Because if you think about it, like, Zack does Man of Steel. There's our Iron Man.
Yeah.
Then he does Batman v Superman, which is okay. Well, there's our Thor, Captain America, and Hulk, and Iron Man 2. Because it's kind of basically a sequel. And then he does Justice League, which is Avengers.
Yeah.
And they're just going, okay, yeah, cool, sounds great, awesome. But of course, then for like business and box office reasons, they're like, hey, fuck you, dude, sit back, I'm taking over now. And then they're like, and that whole thing happened with the Snyder Cut. So that's kind of what happened in the DC camp, was that it was the filmmaker who was driving the ship, not the people behind the scenes.
And the problem was that the people behind the scenes could still take over at any time, which they did, which then made a cluck of a bunch of stuff that just happened.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, and to be fair, like, that's why Marvel has continued to go in this serialized faction. Like, the way that the MCU has functioned, where you have Kevin Feige at the top, and then he delineates different writers and different directors to come in and out for the different entries in this ever-evolving story, that's how comics work. Like, you have different writers and different artists who come in and pitch their stories, and they write and illustrate their individual books. But at the end of the day, it's Stan Lee running everything. Same thing with television. That's exactly what a showrunner on a TV show does. You have a whole room of writers who are like, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? But then you have, like, a Vince Gilligan for Breaking Bad who's like, that sounds great, let's do it. That's not so much, let's not do it.
And that's probably what happened with Star Wars as well, is they had George Lucas behind every single step of the way. You watch those documentaries, and he's in the editing room. He's talking to the special effects people. He's with the prop department. He is there with the camera people. He's there, like, sound design. That dude was in every part of but then you go into the sequels, you don't see Kathleen Kennedy supervising over absolutely everything. And that's why Mandalorian worked so well, was because they had
Favreau and Filoni.
Thank you. Favreau and Filoni over everything. It was their thing, and that's why, like, certain facets of the Clone Wars and I don't want to call it the extended Star Wars universe. The what do they call it in the They call it something.
Oh, like what do they call the Mandalorian?
Yeah, like what do they call the offshoots? The non like it's like Star Wars stories or something like that. Like they call them something.
Oh, I don't know.
They it's not
Does Star Wars have its own like it's the Fast Saga kind of thing?
Sort of, yeah. They call it the Skywalker. So the main movies are called the Skywalker saga, and then like the movies that aren't are like I think they're called like Star Wars stories.
Oh yeah, Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah, they're called
Solo, a Star Wars story.
Solo, a Star Wars story. And the Mandalorian is technically part of that whole
branding.
Star Wars story kind of thing, and I think that's why the Star Wars stories, those films work better. Not only are they their own individual thing, and it's what you were saying earlier, Jeff. Like when I watch Solo, I don't connect it to the original films. And I don't care what anyone says. Solo, people love Solo. They just refuse to admit it. But whenever you watch Rogue One, you don't connect Rogue One to anything. Whenever you're watching Force Awakens, you're like, oh, okay, what's happening next? Where's Luke Skywalker going to be? Where's, where's Leia? What's Han Solo doing? Oh, why is he doing this? Why is he doing this and not doing that? Why is he? No, you don't do that. Your brain's not doing that. Your brain's not trying to connect dots when you're watching these Star Wars stories. If there are dots being connected, it's because you're like, okay, why is the world? And when I say world, I mean the universe, the world of that story. Why is this universe in the state that it is? How does this connect to? Oh, okay, I see. Like they'll do like one small little reference, and everyone's happy, right? Like spoilers for anyone that hasn't seen Mandalorian. Just skip ahead like 30 seconds because I'll make it quick. Baby Yoda, Grogu, they're like, oh, you must find his people and get him back with his people. And everyone wants to say, oh, we get to figure out the origins of the little green aliens where Yoda's from. There's the only aliens we know nothing about. And then it's like, oh, well, his people are Jedi. That's what, and no one's mad about it. No one's mad because it's contained in its own little thing. Yes, it's connected to the main movie sagas, but it stays contained. And that's why like the sequels get hurt by it. But okay, so I want to take a huge left turn, off topic discussion with you.
Okay.
Yesterday, you were talking to me. You're telling me how, because we're talking about ownership and we're talking about like Dungeon Masters and stuff like that.
Oh no.
You were telling me Marvel might have a whole new Dungeon Master.
Oh no. Well, not that they'll have a new Dungeon Master. It's that it's what it ultimately ends up being is Disney is just gonna have to share the pot with more and more people.
Yep.
If everything goes according to plan.
So why don't you tell the audience what we're alluding to?
So hold on, let me close my Denis Villeneuve and my Dune tabs here.
I thank you for doing that, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Having that stuff up.
So there is something called the Copyright Act of 1976, which essentially allows heirs to pull the plug on licenses granted or transferred for a copyrighted work in particular situations with a fully executed notice. In layman's terms, I have a family member, they created something. At a certain point after my family member dies, and obviously like I am in control of their estate, the rights to whatever my family member created artistically revert back to me, and I can do whatever the fuck I want with it, and whoever owned the rights before they died no longer has the rights to that material.
That's insane. That's such
an insane thing. Which is like it's crazy. So this actually came up with I read so much today. And by today I mean in the 20 minutes leading up to when we started this podcast, because I was like, oh shit, I should actually like have my ducks in a row here.
Nice.
Yes, so this actually came up in 2014 with Jack Kirby, who was basically a longtime collaborator of Stan Lee. Stan Lee created and wrote the comics, Jack Kirby was the artist, and that's typically the way that comics work: is you have the writer and then you have the artist, and beyond that you have the inker and the shit. Who's the person that writes the words? Anyway, like the artist is the person who does the pencil sketch, essentially, or not sketch, but like they do the art, but then you have an inker who comes in and does like the shading and the highlights, and then you have a colorist, and then you have, I don't have a comic book around me, the titles, the words, what's it called? Shit. Anyway, point being, for the most part, you have the writer and you have the artist. So Stan Lee, famously, we all know he's the writer. Jack Kirby was the artist, and Jack Kirby created, or rather in 2014, yes, so with the estate of Jack Kirby, this was in regards to Captain America, Fantastic Four, Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, the original X-Men, and a plethora of other characters. And I'm reading all of this from Deadline, so it's legit. A lot of times we will see stories come out on the internet, and sometimes it's from like YouTubers, or well, I don't want to say YouTubers, but like all I'll say is, like, a lot of times some journalists do some clickbaity stuff. If it comes from Deadline, it's fucking legit. Anything that you read on Deadline is like, this is official, this is actually something that's going on.
Interesting.
So basically this whole lawsuit and settlement happened with the estate of Jack Kirby, which is why when you watch not all of, but most of the MCU films, you will see a credit, depending if it's the opening credits or the end credits, whatever, you will see based on characters created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Because Marvel, the estate of Jack Kirby was trying to regain the rights to all of those characters that I just listed, and Disney was like, and Marvel was like, fuck you, we want to keep making comics as well as toys and lunchboxes and movies and TV shows and all this kind of stuff based on these characters. So how much money do we need to throw at you right now so that we can do that? And they settled, and that was fine. So now something similar is happening with Steve Ditko, who, along with Stan Lee, is the co-creator of Spider-Man and Doctor Strange.
Oh boy.
Which, and basically what this all sets up is, and again, it's, so basically the estate of Steve Ditko is saying, hey, we have the rights to this, fuck you, Marvel, we're taking it back. And of course Marvel is like, well, we have lawyers, but we're gonna get the Disney lawyers because they're really good at what they do. Because again, this is not just for the movies. Like, everybody thinks like Marvel being like the MCU, and it's like, no, dude, like they're still pumping out comic books with all these characters. So this is like everything. This is not just the MCU. It's TV series, it's the comics, it's action figures, lunchboxes, all that kind of good stuff. So with this go ahead.
Well, I was gonna go on a small tangent. Keep going.
Well, I was saying what this ultimately is going to turn into is, so best case scenario is the lawyers and the estate of Steve Ditko, like his family and everything, just settle so that they get a sum of money, and whenever characters that he created appear in the MCU, this extends past the MCU, but let's just keep it to the MCU because that allows my brain to function better.
There you go.
Whenever characters that he co-created appear in the MCU, he gets a credit during the credit sequence, whether it's at the beginning of the movie or the end of the movie, because sometimes, movie credits happen differently.
Yeah.
But the reason that I wanted to mention this as a topic to talk about is that this opens up a gigantic can of worms, because the reason Marvel and their lawyers are stepping in is because from their point of view, from Marvel's point of view, these artists were hired on a by project basis. they were compensated for their work, but nothing in their paperwork
Oh,
has
snap.
anything to do with rights. So, and they talk about the fact that like when Steve Ditko was hired, he like it was agreed upon that he would be paid a certain amount of money per page, essentially. So if each issue is 16 pages, 24 pages, 100 pages, whatever, his compensation is he gets paid per page. But nowhere in any of his paperwork or legal documentation does it say that he retains the rights. And to me, that makes sense. Like, it's a work for hire type of situation. We hired you to do this. You are compensated for the work that you did on this book.
Yeah.
And when I first heard about this, the first thing that popped into my head is an interview that happened earlier this year. I'm going to go on a slightly quick tangent, but I'm going to wrap it up, I promise.
No, you're good.
On Fat Man Beyond, which is the Kevin Smith it's technically a YouTube show, but it's we'll call it podcast because it's exactly what we do. Because they stream it, but it's technically a podcast.
How long do they talk for?
They go for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Usually.
So we're just better. Yeah.
If nothing else, there's more to us because we go longer. But what they do, so Fat Man Beyond podcast with Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin, they had Ed Brubaker on earlier this year. Ed Brubaker created the Winter Soldier because, and I will, I won't drop it in chat in case because I don't want to drive traffic away from you, but I'll send the clip to you. I urge everybody to watch this interview because it is.
Put it in chat. Put it in chat for them to see.
I'll find it when I'm done talking, and that sort of thing.
And that's the cool thing about what you're telling me about YouTube now is if someone's watching this on YouTube, they should get the clip at this time.
Yeah. So they brought him on because earlier this year, obviously, Falcon and Winter Soldier was happening, and so they just lucked into getting an interview with Ed Brubaker, who, if you don't know Ed Brubaker, I urge you to look him up as well. He's an incredibly prolific comic book writer for many, many years. He made Iron Fist cool. It is like one of his other big claims to fame with Marvel is like Iron Fist wasn't cool until me and Matt Fraction made him cool.
Nice.
But he created the Winter Soldier. And it's like a big personal story to him because he grew, and he said this in the interview, but I'm just summing it up real quick. But he grew up, he was an army brat. His father was in the military. And so he really related to the character of Bucky. And Bucky was always his favorite character. He was like, I don't give a shit about Steve Rogers. He's perfect. I want to know what happened to Bucky. And so when he started writing comics and he got an interview with Marvel, he pitched them the Winter Soldier. And so when he was doing this interview, of course, Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin were like, so, hey, dude, like, isn't it fucking cool, like, seeing your baby, like, up on the big screen, and now, like, he's got his own spin-off show, and he's like, and Ed Brubaker drops this bomb where he's like, oh, I'm not watching it. Which the hosts and also the audience are like, what are you talking about? Like, it's Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, that's something that you created. It's now a TV show. What do you mean you're not watching it? And it's because he feels very sore about the fact that he... in his eyes, is not properly compensated for having created the Winter Soldier. And it's like, yeah, he gets like a little thing at the end of the credits or something where it's like special thanks to Ed Brubaker, and I don't know the name of the artist that worked with him on that run, but like they're in the special thanks, like at the very end of the credits or something.
Jeez.
And because in his mind, he should be compensated.
Yeah.
And like I remember watching that interview earlier this year being like, holy shit, like Ed Brubaker, first of all, Ed Brubaker came to play. Like he goes on for like 20 minutes about how fucked up it is that they're not properly compensated. It's an amazing interview. But when I was thinking about it later, I was
I'm going to go finish that thought.
Well, when I was thinking about it, because I was talking to somebody at work about it the next day, like, holy shit, did you see fucking Fat Man last night? And I was thinking about it like, but wait a minute, like Marvel owns the rights to everything. Like you're a comic, like that's how comics work. Like you get hired by a company to pitch an idea, and then they pay you money to go realize that idea. But at the end of the day, like you don't,
like if you didn't negotiate that as part of your contract, then like that's what it is. Like you're a work for hire. They own everything. And so what I mean by can of worms is like, so wait a minute, what you're kind of proposing is anytime Bucky shows up in the MCU, you get a cut of it.
Slice of the pie, yeah.
Which is like, okay, I get it, but you already got paid for your contribution of Bucky. Like you created it, you wrote the comics, you got paid for that. This is now a different writer dealing with the same intellectual property. They get paid for their contribution to it. And I do understand the whole notion that Disney and Marvel are making billions of dollars, so they could probably shell out like, okay, here's $5,000 or here's 20 grand, like whatever the number is. But it is sort of like, okay, so anytime we want, like we're making an MCU movie, if we introduce a character, first of all, we have to credit and pay the creator of that character. Like let's say it's some like talking about Thor. We were talking about Taika Waititi doing the new Thor movie.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do we have to credit the creator of that character, we also have to look at, now wait a minute, what context are we using this character? Is it from the original comics, or is it from the Ultimate run, or is it from when this character appeared in this other run that somebody else did? Now we have to credit that person because they had a new take on the character. And it just becomes this whole like spider web of who really has the rights and who should be properly compensated. And it's
an interesting thing.
It could
so
potentially be just a big mess.
I think so. Here's my personal view on it. I think if you created the character like from scratch, even if you were just on there for a small contract thing, I think that you should receive a lot more credit than that. Now, if the character has already been created and you're just writing like storylines for the character, well, that's tough too. Never mind. Because let's say you didn't make any of the X-Men, but you wrote the Phoenix Saga, which is supposed to be like the best X-Men storyline out there. And these companies keep attempting to do the Phoenix Saga over and over again. They're not succeeding, but they're making tons of cash while failing, right? That person who wrote the Phoenix Saga, do they get compensated every time? But it's a new. Okay, I see where you're getting at, Jeff. So this is the tangent
like
that I want to go on real quick.
Do they need to be compensated?
Right.
Is it just like here's a lump sum up top, or is it like every time I get 0.09% of the box office? It just gets so complicated. Potentially.
I think. Yeah. As horrible as it sounds, I think that sentiment is something I have to agree on. Because, like, I do see where he's coming from, right? That would suck if something you created way back when, and then other people are reaping the rewards, years later, and who knows how much money you could have made from it back then, but you're not making the same amount now, right? And so, yeah, that's a touchy subject. I do think though, like, you got paid for it, you did your contributions, and I mean that's kind of how it is for that. Like, yeah,
because that kind of goes along with what we were talking about with adaptation, like Dune.
So hold on. I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. So like, I think this is where like. Because before you segue us back on topic,
I was gonna say, yeah, go ahead.
Disney, same company with Star Wars, there was something similar happening, but kind of more like just like crap. So the extended universe books that Disney said is no longer canon. They're like, all right, this is no longer canon. It's now going to be called, I forgot what Disney called it. It's now going to be called Star Wars Legends. They were still making money off of the books, and they were not giving it to the writers. And so one of the writers sued them and was like, hey, like, that's my book, like, that you're making money off of, that you said is no longer canon. Well, and then Disney was like, well, it's no longer canon, so don't worry about it. Like, you don't want part of this cut anyways. And he's like, well, people are still buying the books because they're not liking the product that you're putting out. Like, give me some. Like, and so he wins the case.
Mm-hmm.
So now Disney has to give him a cut of, like, the books. But then Disney states, we're not, if you want, they say that they're not going to do this for every writer, because there are so many Star Wars books and there's so many different writers that did different stories. They said each writer will have to sue them. Essentially, we'll have to take them to court to see if they can get there. And it's like, it's almost a similar situation with Bucky, but I think you're still using the exact, because it's different whenever Bucky is, you created Bucky, but now they are innovating Bucky. Now they're doing different stories. Yeah, it's your character, but they're writing different stuff with him. Like, this isn't your work anymore. This is, you could even go as far, this is what's the Theseus's boat?
Oh, the Ship of Theseus.
The Ship of Theseus. You can even go as far as to call it, that's what this is. It's the Ship of Theseus. It's not the original
ship anymore.
It's no longer the original ship. You still see it. You still see it as the original ship, but there's so much changes that have gone to it that's no longer the same ship. And that's what I think is happening here with Bucky and that guy. So, like, I can agree there. But then whenever you're taking someone's book and it's the same book that they wrote 20 years ago, but now because you rejuvenated Star Wars, now people are going to go back and they're going to go like, they're going to go be like, oh, you know what? I want my kid, or I want my grandson, or I want to repurchase the book that I read back then to see, I want to get ready for the sequel trilogies. I want to, and they go back, and that's what happens whenever a movie comes out. People go and find the books regarding the movie or similar to the movie. So, like, this is the same work that this writer did a while back, but now Disney is reaping the rewards for. I think that one's a little more, like, messed up, because that's his property, and it never really stopped being his property.
Right. Can I throw another analogy your way just to potentially annoy you?
Yes, please.
I like annoying you.
Okay, no, I want to be annoyed.
So, if I go to a store, so if I walk into a Barnes and Noble and I purchase a book, it's a new release book, and I buy it for $20. That is my book.
That's your book.
I own that. That is my property. I paid for it. It belongs to me. I then take it to Half Price Books because I'm like, I have gotten what I need out of this book, and now I'm going to give it to you. And they pay me, a quarter for it.
Okay.
The book is now property of Half Price Books.
Okay.
I have entered into an agreement where they say, hey, we will take this from you for a quarter. Do you agree? And I say, yes, I accept. Later on, I want that book back.
Yep.
But Half Price Books has now priced it for their inventory at $10. I have to pay $10. I can't go to them and say, I can't go to them and say, well, hey, that's my book. Because at one point it was my book. So give it back to me. That wasn't what the agreement was. And I say, okay, well, I see here you have it priced at $10, but you paid me a quarter for it. So therefore, if I give you a quarter, can I have it back? Well, no, they're not going to give it back to me because it has now become something more valuable than what they paid me for. I mean, it's not an exact analogy, but it's that thing of like, I did a thing, I gave it to somebody else, we agreed on a sum, but that doesn't necessarily mean that just because I want a piece of it, I get it, because that's just the way that everything was written and agreed upon initially.
I think that
that's kind of how I
think for that, and I agree with that like the way you look at it that way. I don't. I think what happens though is there's some things that can be muddled in the water. So like if you look at George R. R. Martin, right? Not George R. R. Martin. I'm so sorry. If you look at, there's no way I can pronounce
Tolkien?
this name. No.
J.R.R. Tolkien?
No. It's the guy who wrote the Witcher series.
Oh, something Salvatore?
No, his last name is. It has like X's and Z's in it. There's I. So, but I want to give him credit, but the writer for the Witcher series, he had sold off. Yeah, you see what I'm talking about?
And yeah, I'm not going to attempt it.
He had sold
the guy who wrote the Witcher series.
The guy who wrote the Witcher series. Thank you, chat. Yes, if you look at chat, it's in there. If you're listening on the podcast, please forgive me. I will. Andres Sawatsky. Sapkowski. Okay, Andres Sapkowski. He sold the Witcher series, and he did exactly what Jeff described. And I think that in that scenario, that's okay. I think like that's kind of what happens. It sucks for him because he had tried to make a TV show, or he tried to make a movie, and he tried to do this and that, and it just kept failing. Like no one could adapt his book. And then CD Projekt Red showed up, and they said, "Hey, we will adapt your book and turn it into a video game." And he was like, "Whatever, good luck. I've tried." Sold the rights to them, and they made a video game. A couple years later, it's like this huge franchise that turned into a TV show. They got, and now he's like, "Hold up," and he wasn't. That scenario I think is good. I think what sucks though is there are some people that are just trying to get by, right? And they're just trying to pay rent or eat, and they sign on, and I think these companies take advantage of that, and they make these stories, they make these incredible stories, but they're not allowed to do more. And they can't really negotiate for more because they are stuck. Because it's like I gotta pay bills, I gotta eat, right? So it's like, do I skip out on eating for maybe this blowing up in the next 20 years of my life, or do I eat now and just maybe see what happens? And I think in a lot of scenarios, like especially with because you have to understand, this was a writer. Writers do not make a lot of money unless you're like J.K. freaking Rowling. Like unless you wrote Harry Potter, you're not making a lot of money as a writer. He beat Disney lawyers. So I think there's some credit to the fact of like there is like that companies know, okay, well, we can churn gold out of these people for a cheap profit. Now if you now with Andres I'm so sorry, Sapkowski, he fucked up. But what was he gonna do? Like he was like, he had already tried, failed, and he kind of gave up on his own property. But it's what Jeff said. It's a can of worms. But if we break it down to the fundamentals, I have to agree with Jeff. I think Jeff takes the point on this one. Not that we were competing, but I think Jeff definitely
I was
takes.
like, wait, what?
He takes the point on this one because if you did something and then you sell it, it's no longer yours. I'm sorry. You don't buy something as a gift for someone, give them the gift and be like, "You know what? That was a really cool like thing. Like, hey man, can I get that back actually?" And the person's like, well, you kind of gave it to me. Like, why do you like? I like it too. You know? So
Well, yeah, it's the story that Justin Timberlake tells in The Social Network, where he makes reference to the guy who created Victoria's Secret, where he like sold the company for like $1 million, and the next year it was worth $100 million, and like fucking jumped off a bridge and killed himself because he was like,
Jeez.
shit. which again is like, okay, well, that's extreme. That's an extreme reaction to have, but yeah, I mean, it's I mentioned Breaking Bad earlier. That's the entire crux of Bryan Cranston's arc on that show. Is he had a company and that he created with 2 other people, and he like sold it for 10 grand or like 100 grand or something, and now they're billionaires, and it's like,
and his
but that's what you did. It's that old thing of, do you want to make $100 today or $1,000 tomorrow?
Yeah.
So
that's that yeah. So, but I'm glad we got to talk about that. I'm glad we brought that up a little bit, because that's such an interesting thing, and it's one of those. It's kind of like, it's almost one of those things where it's like, well, that's the obvious answer. There's an obvious answer to it. Hold on. It's like, well, you just don't know. You really don't know. You can't tell you don't know, because look at freaking Google. Look at go look. I'm pretty sure there's a website dedicated to all the projects that have failed in Google.
yeah,
Google. I mean, you guys remember those smart glasses? Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Google Glass.
Google Glass, like there's
It's
so
gonna revolutionize everything.
I'm sure there's more failures than there are success, and that's the way things go. Somehow, I don't know how. I'm gonna use the word segue and just pretend like we creatively got back on topic.
Nice.
Marvel movies, I think they're good. I think they're good, and I think they are artistic. I believe they fit a certain genre. I don't think they are heavily artistic. I think they're definitely hitting a fan base, and they're hitting emotions, but they're not hitting. I mean, look, no, I don't think a lot of people expected the impact that Endgame had on our society, on our culture. I don't think everyone talks about how they love Infinity War more than Endgame, but Endgame, there's so many things. People were timing Tony Stark's snap to New Year's, and people were doing all these other things there's still memes. It's still something that everyone together experienced as an event, and that's so crazy to think about, right? That in itself is its own art form, to get people all to feel something almost unanimously. And then you have, so I want to see, I think at the end of the day, Denis Villeneuve, he's not speaking out against Marvel, but he is speaking to the fact that they don't have as much creative freedom as probably, just like how he doesn't. And that's probably how he feels when he's making Dune right now. And he's
I think he's saying the opposite. I think I think what he's saying is, when you work at Marvel, you don't have creative freedom, but when you work on movies that he does, you as a director, you do.
Yeah.
It's he's able to do whatever he wants with his movies, but when you work at Marvel, you have to fit into their assembly line. Okay, you're not here to do your own thing. Obviously we want you to put your fingerprints on it, but really this is our crime scene.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, I bet if Marvel offered him a couple $1 million, he'd jump.
and again, it's kind of going back to the whole people say what they're going to say. Like Edgar Wright on Ant-Man and Scott Derrickson on Doctor Strange 2. Like, people have wanted to work with Marvel, and Marvel has started to work with people. And when they realized, oh shit, this is not a place where I get to do what I normally do as a filmmaker, I am
Yeah.
part of an assembly line, like, they bailed. And
Yeah.
that's totally freaking fine. I think that, like, ultimately, like, that's kind of where I lie on this whole thing is, like, Marvel's doing what they're doing, and it's a thing, and other people are doing movies the way that they do it, and Marvel's making a lot of money,
Yeah.
it's like, it's the MCU is something completely unprecedented and unlike anything else. Like you look at Mission Impossible, uh, uh, which the first movie came out in like '96, so 25 years. Mission Impossible is a 25-year long franchise, and they're on part 8. Is that what we're on right now? Is that the one that just finished filming? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, but anyway, like,
There's a
fuck it,
lot.
let's say 10. Let's round it up to 10. Like 25 years, 10 movies. Mission Impossible. The MCU's been around for 12, 13 years, and with the series plus the new movies, we're on like part 30.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool. Like, that is something that has never happened before. That's insane. And it's, obviously there's problems with the timeline, there's continuity errors, there's weird things of like, well, wait, if this is happening over here, then this is happening over there, and when is this all happening at the same time? Sure. But for all intents and purposes, this is one long ass story. And I think that's where it's like, dude, of course it's cut and paste. Of course it's an assembly line. Like, that's what they do. That's comics. Like, that is serialization. Like, when you're making Blade Runner 2049, you're making one thing. When you're making Dune, technically you're making half a thing, because part 2 has to happen. But you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you're focused on that one thing. They're doing something different. It's not better, it's not worse. And I think, part of the conversation, you can't help but think it revolves around money. Like, hey, how come Blade Runner 2049 only broke even and didn't make $1 billion?
Yeah, I don't think it should be about
every time
money.
Marvel makes a movie, it makes $1 million, or it makes $1 billion, and it's like, well, because that's what everybody's fucking watching.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
why is CSI the #1 rated show on television all the time? It's not even that good. Like, it's just the same thing over and over again.
Why is
yeah
that you could like Call of Duty? Why is Call of Duty the #1 video game every
Yes!
year? Every year is because that is what the
How
general
does an
audience.
Undertale have $1 billion? Well,
Yeah. Because
it's cool, but not a lot of people do.
It's artistic. It's great. Yeah, money shouldn't be the factor that decides it. And that's the thing too, is it scares me and it bothers me because we talked about this with video games, but we didn't really touch on. I mean, we talked about it a little bit with movies, but money does. These executives, I talk about this a lot in video games, and it transitions over to this as well because they see movies as products. Mm-hmm. They don't see movies as art, just like how they don't see video games as art. They saw movies and they're like, oh, movies make money. Now, how do I turn this into a product? And like something really, this opened my eyes years ago. Years and years and years ago. This was around the time where like cell phone games were becoming really popular. And there was around the time of Flappy Bird. I don't know if you guys remember Flappy Bird.
Yeah.
That blew up. So Nintendo was making a kind of like a Super Mario kind of scroller, kind of Flappy Bird kind of thing where Mario just is jumping. You tap the screen and Mario jumps, but he's constantly moving, so you got to like make him jump and play Mario, but on your phone. And it's like the first time we get to have Mario on a cellular device. And I think they were showing it off on some late night show. It might have been Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel, or it was someone. And he gets the guy who created Mario was there, and he was and this is where like Japan. I'm not gonna say Japan. This is where like Nintendo kind of differs from other video game companies. This is why Nintendo probably has like stayed the test of time, and he talks to the original, and and like the late night host at the time was like, so how does that make you feel seeing that like your character has made it this far? Like what passion drives you? Like what artistic like thing do you put in to this? You know, he's asking him like, oh, how do you, because when other video game people come on, they talk about what influenced them and what drove them and what inspired them to create this form of art, this video game. Mm-hmm. And the guy, you know, he speaks in Japanese and he has a translator, and I think he speaks in Japanese, but I'm pretty sure I remember there's a translator, and he says, I don't really see Mario that way. Like, I see Super Mario is more of like a product to me. So like I see Super Mario kind of like an item. Like I don't think of him as like my son or anything like that. Like I see him, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, but he says I see Super Mario. I see Super Mario as a product. That for sure he said, and that like weirded me out at a young age. I was like, how? Like I grew up with this character. Like I don't understand how you can't have the same love that I have. And because at the end of the day, it pays, you know, it keeps the lights on, or it makes them rich. And I'm not saying like that's what he's looking for when he makes that game, but he has to understand when he's making Mario, when they're making Super Mario, they're thinking, okay, what does society look like right now? What does the culture look like right now? How do I make this game to fit the video game franchise as it is, but still leave it as the same thing that people liked in the past? Does that sound familiar? Because that's kind of what I said at the beginning of this podcast about Marvel. How do I take a comic book that people love but modernize it and keep it the same but new? Because it's a product. Now what am I getting at? So the difference between that and what Denis Villeneuve is kind of saying is, now take God of War, which is literally by Barlog. I think it's Cory Barlog.
Cory.
That was a passion project for him.
Oh yeah, dude.
He put
Raising
his soul.
Kratos, the documentary.
Yeah.
Have you watched that?
No,
Yeah.
I've not.
It's, oh my god. It's first of all, it's just an amazing documentary, because it's like, yeah, if you're not a gamer, this movie will still speak to you.
Yeah.
It's a human story.
It's so good.
Yeah, oh my god, dude.
And God of War is probably a bad example because God of War got Game of the Year. Let me Sinuous Sacrifice. So Sinuous Sacrifice.
Ooh, nice.
That's another game that got Game of the Year. Damn it, Mario. Okay, let's just look at these people real quick. So compare Kojima and Sinuous Sacrifice and stuff like that. So like, what are those games doing? You are seeing a reflection of the artist's mind and how they perceive the world. You're seeing, they're telling you, they're trying to say the message of how they see society during this time, or during a time that they were growing up, or the evolution of something, right? That's kind of what Blade Runner does. That's exactly what Blade Runner does.
Yeah.
Marvel doesn't really do that. Maybe Marvel may hint at something. Maybe Marvel may tell some message. Maybe Marvel may speak to people. But it is not a reflection of someone's mind going out and trying to speak to the audience and grab the audience in a way. It's a action thriller blockbuster. It's a product. It's something that's made to make money.
Yeah. I mean... I want to disagree, and not for the sake of disagreeing with what you just said, but just because I want to live in a more magical world, you know?
I know, it's depressing.
Because again, like we talked about this. Like I fucking cried during Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
And it's but I think for my brain to like wrap around what you're saying, it's like, yeah, it's not anyone's singular vision. It's like, yeah, this is like, if the MCU movies and shows, like, if there is a message, if they are saying something that is like emotional and touching, it's the product of like 47 people.
Yeah.
You're not seeing it's not Tarantino.
Right.
Like that's always my go-to because nobody makes movies like Tarantino. Like,
No.
or it's Wes Anderson. You know, like nobody makes movies like he does. It's like they are kind of the amalgamation of the writer, the director, but also there's Kevin Feige and also the actors, because we want the actors to have their own brand because they're going to be on they're going to be on Twitter and they're going to be on all the interviews and the talk show circuit, and we have to appeal to the Jimmy Fallon fans and the James Cordens and the all this kind of stuff. So,
And like,
yeah,
and that's why people have such a bitter taste towards Marvel. And like, I'll talk to some people and they'll be like, no, I don't watch Marvel. I don't like Disney. I don't care for Disney. I can go on tirades of Disney. And it's like, okay, yes, I get it. It's a corporation. I get it. They're treating this franchise like a product. But the people who make this stuff, the people who are signing up making this stuff, they're artists. And this is why, like, I kind of get upset. And this is what I was saying at the beginning of the thing. I kind of get upset when Denis Villeneuve says, when people, when they say something like that, because it's like, okay, yes, you're not wrong, but there's a reason why, Jeff will cry during Shang-Chi. There's a reason why my brother cried during Endgame. There's a reason why I feel so attached and think that Black Panther has such a deep meaning and deep roots to our society, and that like Black Panther helped me feel at home with who I am as a man, right? Like, I used to think of myself as, oh, I'm half black, half Mexican. And I used to think of myself that way because that's how everyone perceived me, as half black, half Mexican. I'm like, no, I am black and I am Mexican. I'm not half. I am black and I am Mexican, right? That is, I am Mario. That is me. And Black Panther helped me get there. And it's why? Because there are people, the culmination of those 40 plus people working and writing those stories, they're probably going through the same thing. They probably want the same thing. And when you put love and effort into something, it will show. Right? And that's why, like, yes, you'll get like little nibbits of like messages, and you'll get like little things. But of course the executives come in and they're like, whoa. That's showing a little bit too much of the black on black violence. How about we just play the safe card a little bit? How about that? And then they're like, all right, yeah, no worry, I can make it work, but I still want to keep this scene. It's got a cool rhino in it. Like, yeah, that rhino's pretty cool. All right, we'll keep it in there. Like, it's that's what it is. And I have to be happy for those people that fight for it. So it's like, I don't watch these movies obviously I watch them and I can't help but support the big corporations, but I don't go there in support for the big corporations. I go in there for the support of the people. Like, no one goes, whenever you hear me and Jeff talk about these films, like, we don't go into, we're not going to go watch Thor and be like, yo, my gosh, Disney. Oh, yes, Thor, Disney. Oh, Disney, you did it. No, we say Taika Waititi. we say the writers. We say this and that.
Well, I just thought of something as you were talking that.
Yeah.
I just had like kind of an epiphany. No, not an epiphany, but like to kind of downplay what Denis Villeneuve said and kind of, I'm imagining me talking to Denis Villeneuve like face to face and being like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but so let's look at what we talked about last week with Malignant.
Okay.
So James Wan, and again, I'm transposing DC, but I'm going to bring it back to MCU.
Okay, go for it.
So James Wan is brought on to direct Aquaman. Makes $1 billion. And so Warner Brothers is like, you know what, James? We brought you on to make that movie. It made $1 billion. what do you want to do next? Like just tell us whatever you want to do next because you made us enough money. We'll let you do whatever you want to do. Here's $40 million. Just go. And James Wan is like, well, shit, I've always wanted to make a Giallo film. Like, I'm going to go do that. Okay, thanks, guys. And then he makes Malignant, which is, like, his thing. So, like, Shang-Chi is the most recent example. Like, Destin Daniel Cretton, and I'm going to reference him as many times as I can because I fucking love Short Term 12. If you haven't seen his first movie, Short Term 12, it's amazing. But, like, he is now in that same category. Like, he's now in that same arena where it's like, hey, man, like, you did this cut and paste, quote unquote, movie. You did this by the numbers movie. You came in, you were a work for hire. You did exactly what fucking Kevin Feige told you to, and that's great. And, you know, like, I understand it from Denis Villeneuve's point of view. Like, that kind of sucks. Like, we hired a filmmaker with a very specific vision and style, and, oh, it's just another Marvel movie. It's cut and paste, blah, 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 blah. But now, that guy has people begging him to direct another movie for them. Because they can because whenever they start doing the marketing on the poster and on the trailer, they can say, from the director of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which people will remember is like, oh, that's a movie that I saw that I liked, and now I'll go see this movie.
There it is. There's the voice.
There's the voice.
There's the voice.
But again, it's also, like, not only is it just like, hey, like, you know, thank the Lord, like, Shang-Chi was a good movie, but it also, like, broke a bunch of records at the box office. It was extremely successful, you know? And, you know, and again, like, again, to you know, kind of go back to what Denis Villeneuve is saying is, like, maybe some people are okay being cut and paste. You know, like, I mean, I don't mean to shit on the Russo brothers, for example, but, like, I can't tell you what their style is, really. You know, and they did fucking 4 of those Marvel movies. You know, like, I could look at Taika Waititi and I'd be like, okay, that guy has a fucking style.
Yeah.
Like, if I were to watch another Taika Waititi movie, not knowing that he had anything to do with it, I'd be like, oh, this is probably a Taika movie. You know, but
I haven't seen
so
a
there's
lot
pros and
of
cons
J.J.
to both.
Abrams films, but I could probably say the same thing. Like, I don't know J.J. Abrams' style.
There's a lens flare. J.J. Abrams directed it.
There's a lens
No,
flare. There's Beastie Boys. J.J. Abrams.
There's a camera that, like, starts kind of tilted to it's like it's Dutch angled to the left, and it, like, pushes in really fast and then spins around until it Dutch angles to the right on like a close up of a character. That's a J.J. Abrams thing.
I just don't know. I don't see but you bring up yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like, okay, I did a cut and paste thing, but now I get to go do.
It's
be not cut and paste because I've made a shit ton of money.
Well, it's the thing that I think a lot of people say. It's the thing that I'm kind of doing. I've kind of had to learn recently as well. Is you gotta play the game before you change the game. You know, you wanna if you don't how things are running, you gotta play by their rules. Get on their good side and then change some stuff up. You know, that's. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but it does show results. It does show results because if you right off the bat try to go against the current, you know, they're gonna push you down. So you can't just come out, and it's what you tell me all the time, Jeff. Like, people are not gonna watch your first 20 movies or whatever like that. You know, you can't expect people to do the thing, but if you show them, hey, I can make you money, I'm capable of it, and then you go and you do something silly or whatever, you do what you're dreaming up, they're not going to care because you made the money.
Yeah. Dude, like, it's funny because, like, I was literally talking to Ivy about this yesterday afternoon, but, like, that's how you get movies made. Like, the people who finance movies are not filmmakers. They're real estate people. They're dentists. They're they're people, or not dentists. That's not a good example. But, like, they're tech. They are tech investors. They are people who make money. Like, because think about it. What do rich people want?
Money.
They want more money.
Want more money.
And so if they are agriculture or engineering or technology or, whatever business makes them money, and they suddenly get wind of the film industry, oh, that's another way to make money.
Yep.
Okay, because like, and again, like that's the thing of like, well, shit, now I'm getting completely off topic, but it's like, if you want somebody to fund your movie, you don't talk to them about theme and symbolism and the message and
No.
what it's all. You present them a business plan, motherfucker. You know?
Yep.
Like, they don't care because they don't care about the movie. And again, I'm not saying that like, because again, it's like you look at people like Kathleen Kennedy and Kevin Feige. It's like, I'm not saying that all they care about is money, because they're not the people footing the bill.
Right.
You know? Like people, like, you can look at them as like, yes, they're executives, but like Kevin Feige isn't writing a check like, okay, here's $4,000 so you can go build a set or whatever. Like, he's not that guy.
Yeah.
Like, other people are spending the money.
And that, like, yeah. And that's where you can tell, right? That's where you can tell is they may not be putting the money in it, but you can tell that Kevin Feige cares about... this is going to sound bad. I need to be careful with how I word this. Kevin Feige really does care about the trajectory and, like, the path and the story that the Marvel universe takes, and he's willing to take risk, because we've said this in the past, but the whole scene with Iron Man and Nick Fury talking, they weren't entirely like, they wanted to just gauge audiences' reaction on if they should do this or not.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They weren't really like set in stone, we're going to do the Avengers and this is how we're going to do it. And so they were gauging people's reaction and they got it. But I think with Kathleen Kennedy is she, instead of thinking of, obviously she cared about the trajectory of the Star Wars films, but she cared about it for different reasons or for different like priorities.
Right.
And you could see it in the films, and you could see it. It's, and this is the reason why I don't like Rise of Skywalker, because Rise of Skywalker, when you watch that film, it just feels like they read every fan theory on the internet.
Well, yeah,
and put it in the film.
That goes back to what we were talking about with Zack Snyder. It's like, that's exactly what Star Wars did. They were like, JJ, go do your thing. All right, that was a great thing. Hey, Ryan, come in, do your thing. Colin, you're up to bat, so get ready. Oh, wait, shit, people didn't like Ryan's thing? Never mind, Colin. You go sit down right now. JJ, come back and do the thing, because people liked that, but they didn't like Ryan's thing, so we're going to put you over here. And it's like, well, but
they misunderstood
who
why
had
we
the
didn't
vision
like
for the
it.
whole thing?
Yeah. And when, with Colin, oh, dude, like, I understand first drafts and rough drafts are not, they're not, you shouldn't take those so seriously. But, oh my gosh, dude, like, hearing about that, the first draft of Rise of Skywalker, what Rise of Skywalker was going to be, makes me just feel like he understood the film, and that when they said no, I was like, why would they say no? Is because... And I don't like it when people... Yeah, it's money. I don't like it when people say, oh, they hate the Star Wars films, like, or they hate... It's like, no one is trying to ruin your film. No one's trying to ruin your franchise, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Even the people making money, they're not trying to ruin your franchise. They saw this guy doing something creative. They saw him doing something crazy. I mean, I'm talking like Kylo Ren was meeting a Sith alien entity and was gonna get some vampire powers. And
I'd see that movie.
yeah, I'd see that movie as well.
Vampires are in Star Wars all of a sudden, I'm there.
But then they saw, like what you were saying, Last Jedi, and they were like, ooh, last time we tried to be creative, they didn't like it. How about we go back and we play it safe and we just give them exactly what they want? It's like, people don't know what they want. I'm sorry, but people, like, don't listen to people. Don't, like, there's so many times where I thought I wanted something in a film and a director gave me something else, and I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't get what I wanted. Like, and that's what Rise of Skywalker, I kid you not, every thing that I read or every fan theory that I ever freaking heard was jammed into that film. And I couldn't help it. I've never rolled my eyes in a film before. Until I saw Rise of Skywalker. You could hear how upset I was. Anyways, I'm gonna get off my thing. I'm gonna stop.
No, you're fine, dude. Like you're expressing something that is absolutely true, and it's exactly what happened with DC as well. Like they were like, "Hey Zach, you're our guy. Do your thing." Oh, Batman v Superman didn't do so well. Well, we're in the middle of Justice League, so we need to change the trajectory of that. And it's like, okay, well, that's how you end up with the theatrical cut of Justice League versus the Snyder cut of Justice League. And obviously we can get into the weeds about that, but given the fact that the Snyder cut, while it is superior, is still unreleasable in traditional movie terms. Like you can't put a 4-hour movie into theaters, so that it is its own can of worms in and of itself. But
do you think
it's still objectively speaking better than what they went with? So
I 100% agree. Holy crap.
That's the main thing. Have a vision and fucking stick to it.
Stick
and if it
with
fucks
it.
up, then change direction on the next thing. But don't change direction halfway on the same thing.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I think this was a great discussion. This went in a roundabout way that I wasn't expecting. But I do like what we came up with. I like the idea that we've established that we understand that Denis Villeneuve sees it as a product, right? And we can establish it as a product, but it by no means discredits the people that work on the film.
Yeah.
I really, without going more off topic, I really don't have much else to say. I'm so glad that we got to talk about this, and you made me wait to talk about this for this weekend.
I'm glad that we had a full discussion about how filmmakers just need to maybe be a little more thoughtful with the things that they say.
Yeah.
Given how fans will react to it. And we didn't even talk about what Patty Jenkins said.
Wait, what did Patty Jenkins say?
Oh, I don't know. That's like a whole nother hour.
Well, we have 40 minutes.
When you mentioned, because you kind of tease at the end of last week's episode, Denis Villeneuve said this thing. So in the back of my mind, I was thinking about what Patty Jenkins said, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's a great thing." But then we went on all of our tangents and all that stuff.
Hey man,
so Patty
we got to stay on brand.
And again, if this results in we just talked about it for 10 minutes, that's great. If we talk about it for 45 minutes, cool, whatever. But Patty Jenkins did a panel at a convention, and this is technically this is a month old at this point. This is even older than what Denis Villeneuve said. But she was talking about streaming and streaming services and how streaming has obviously we with Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, etc. We knew that streaming was a thing, but 2020 and the pandemic really solidified the entertainment landscape is now forever changed, and streaming is here to stay, because that's what we all watched last year. We didn't theaters were no longer an option, so we all caught up on that's why Tiger King fucking exploded, because we were all at home watching Netflix. So she's on this panel and basically talking about how she doesn't really like streaming services, and part of it has to do with the fact that she directed Wonder Woman 1984, and it was supposed to be this big old
that's why that name sounds familiar to me.
Yeah. And
that movie makes me
theatrical blockbuster, and it wasn't, because it was simultaneously released on HBO Max. So maybe some people saw it in theaters, but mostly people watched it on HBO Max. And the first thing that sticks out to me is, and I don't, I'm scrolling through, but I don't have her direct quote in front of me right now. But she basically kind of took issue with the fact that Wonder Woman 1984 releasing on HBO Max really had a lot to do with why it didn't do good at the box office and why it was technically a box office failure. And when you read a filmmaker say something like that, my first thought is, well, yeah, so did the fucking pandemic.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And secondly, so did the fact of it being a shitty movie.
It was bad.
Like, I'm sorry, but
it was
like,
bad. It was real bad.
Yeah. And she then goes on. Actually, I will let you kind of comment on on that little part while because I want to because I'm doing that thing where I'm harping on one specific thing that she said, but dude, I have a freaking rant.
So, yeah, like that's interesting that she would blame it on the streaming service. I do not. I can sympathize with her for blaming it on the streaming service. However, I'm gonna go back to what I said before. I guess this isn't a however. Whatever. I'm not gonna try to correct that. What I talked about DVDs, the transition from streaming service to DVDs. I think that the executives are really taking advantage of these movie people. I think contracts need to change with streaming services, and because of Scarlett Johansson, there should be a push, more of an eye opener to that kind of stuff. People used to really, and I say people, the movie industry relied a lot on DVDs and straight to video content. And I know I'm repeating myself. I know I said this earlier in the stream. However, I could definitely see why she is upset with the streaming service itself. Now, I don't know. This could be a political thing. Maybe she's just one of those people that doesn't really like cohere into the pandemic, or maybe she thinks that like theaters could have done differently. But I think either way, like pandemic or not, whether you believe in it or not, you have to believe in the fact that it is affecting what's going on. Like you have to believe in that much. And
again, like bear in mind, like we're talking about like we're in end of September 2021. Wonder Woman 1984 came out like December of 2020. So this is still like when the shit's like really bad.
Did she say this before or after Wonder Woman came out?
Well, she said it a month ago, but she is addressing events that transpired at the end of 2020.
Wait, she said this a month ago?
No, yeah, like she was on a panel like a month ago
What?
at a convention, and she's talking about like, hey, like my movie didn't do well, and I kind of blame the fact that it was simul-released on a streaming service. Because the whole thing, her whole kind of thing that she was going on was, here's the...
You know what else simul-released on a streaming service? Black Widow. You know what else simul-released on a streaming service? Cruella de Vil. You know what else simul-released on a streaming service? Hold on. There's one that was a real big blockbuster that released on a streaming service. I'm announcing successes, but what's a blockbuster? Technically, Shang-Chi.
But here's the thing. Well, Shang-Chi was only in theaters, but this is why I'm bringing this up.
Oh, it was. That's right.
Yeah, it was. That was a whole other thing.
Oh,
Shang-Chi was exclusively in theaters, but it released
Jungle Cruise
August,
2,
early September. But here's the thing: like Shang-Chi is early September. Was it early September or late August? I don't know. It's late
one
summer.
And the same.
Let's do that. So Shang-Chi comes out only in theaters late summer of 2021.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 1984 comes out in December of 2020. We don't have a vaccine yet. Like you gotta remember, like we're still in like the throes of it, dude. Fucking Biden just won. Like we're still in the throes of all of that chaotic bullshit of like the whole like November election. That's at the and so like for her to say like it was released on a streaming service and that like ruined the box office, and it's like but there was some other shit going on, girl.
Yeah, there's a lot of other factors going on. Like even so because Okay, so also HBO didn't make you pay $30 to watch it. No, they made you pay 15. Well, I guess you're saying not an extra $30. Then yes, on top of what you're already subscribed for. Then yeah, that's also true. Here's my thing. I watched a documentary a long time ago, recommended by a friend. It was fighting. I forgot what it's called. It's like fighting in the age of fighting or something like. It's a documentary about martial arts and basically how society affected a sport, or not a sport, but kind of like a culture, hobby / now sport because of UFC and stuff like that. And it opened my eyes to the fact that whatever is happening in current day really, really affects everything. It affects media, it affects your day-to-day life, and it affects like the economy and stuff like that. And I don't think people realize that. I think like that quote, what she's saying, really, really like stems to the fact that that movie, I think, was gonna fail either way. I think that movie. Okay, so I think I don't know. I'm out of context here, okay? So I'm going to say two different things. I'm going to go down two different roads. My first road is she's kind of in denial in the fact that the movie failed. That's my first thing. My second thing is even if HBO didn't play that film, I can't think of another movie that came out in theaters that did like amazing before we started reopening.
Holy shit, dude. I just had an epiphany. Not an epiphany, but you know,
you keep having those.
No, you just made me realize something. This ties in perfectly to what we were talking about earlier with the whole Steve Ditko thing.
Yeah.
So if you remember earlier in the podcast, we were talking about how when Warner Brothers announced, hey, we're going to simul-release on HBO Max. And they were kind of like they did it in the best way that they could, where they like announced it and then they were kind of retroactively like trying to make deals with everybody, right?
Yeah.
So that was the deal that they made with Patty Jenkins, but also Gal Gadot, was, hey, we know that you guys were supposed to like make points on the box office, but obviously because we're simul-releasing it on HBO Max, that's probably not gonna come into play. Can we just cut you guys a check for $10 million? And both of them were like, yeah, sure. So in my mind, like, that's kind of like, Patty, you got your like you agreed to this deal. You were like, hey, we want to simultaneously release on HBO Max. In exchange, we'll give you $10 million right here, right now. She says yes. As opposed to, absolutely not. I'm going to take the Christopher Nolan route and stand my ground that this needs to be a theatrical experience. If people want to see Wonder Woman 1984, it is meant to be a big screen thing, because I don't believe in streaming and people need to see movies in theaters. But instead, she took the check. So yeah. I feel like if you took the money, you don't get to retroactively be all like, nah, streaming services are ruining cinema.
Yeah, I agree. Well, correct me.
And it's like, dude, you can think that if you want to.
Verify something for me.
You took the money.
Does she think... Please verify this. Does she believe that Wonder Woman flopped because it had to compete with the streaming service?
She feels like, well, and again, like this is exactly what happened with Tenet. Is like she feels like it flopped because people chose to watch it on HBO Max instead of going to see it in theaters. And it's like,
and she said this a month ago.
Yes.
What the?
And it's like, no, dude. People didn't go see it in theaters because there's a fucking virus going around that if you are in close proximity with somebody else who you don't know, you might fucking die.
Okay, and that's why
people didn't go to the movies.
And that's why you brought up Shang-Chi, is because we're in a different stage.
Yeah, and again, like, I mean, like, that's not to say that like everything's completely better now, because like even when Shang-Chi came out, the Delta variant became a thing. And
Yeah,
it's like,
but people
dude,
were more.
It's still kind of risky, but
People were vaccinated and stuff
things
like.
are
Okay,
more open to it, and we're vaccinated.
so
and all that.
yes,
So,
yeah, I have to agree. I like.
And now we're getting political because we're talking about vaccinations.
I think that. Yeah, I do believe if Wonder Woman was put out. So here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. If Wonder Woman was put out at a different time, like post-vaccination and stuff like that, where a majority of people felt comfortable to go to the films. I'm not talking about like half people. I'm saying majority. Over 50% of people felt comfortable about going to the theaters, kind of like how they do now. I still think Wonder Woman would have flopped because the film was just not good. However, that's not the point I'm about to make. I think that Wonder Woman would have had a different viewers. It does not. This does not discredit Shang-Chi though, because if Shang-Chi came out at December when Wonder Woman came out, it would not have done as good. It would not have succeeded.
Exactly.
And that's the point you're making, and that's where I have to agree with you. I do not think at all that the streaming service took away from Wonder Woman. I do believe it did, but I don't think it took away as much as she's probably making it out to be. It definitely was, because we're going through a freaking pandemic, and whether you believe the virus is real or not, society is being affected by this pandemic. Like, it's globally being affected by this pandemic. And so this, for her to say that the streaming service was the issue, I do agree with her in the fact that streaming services are being vultures, and they're just absolutely taking advantage of something that they probably shouldn't be doing morally, but that's a whole nother conversation. Right. I do not agree with her in the fact that her movie would have done better in December, because if streaming, like if you get rid of HBO Max or you get rid of HBO, she wasn't on there, I still think her movie would have done bad. And here's the thing though. Wonder Woman was a great success. So people wanted to see Wonder Woman 1984. Nobody knew diddly squat about Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi didn't have a previous success. It didn't have previous backings, and it did good. It did good because, one, it's in a better life cycle of the pandemic, and two, because it's freaking released. Well, never mind. I was gonna say because it was a summer blockbuster, but holiday films have a bubble as well. So never mind then.
Well, and here's the other thing, Mario. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask it to you like a lawyer, because one of the main rules about being a lawyer is that you don't ask questions that you don't already know the answer to.
Okay.
But you, sir, are also a lawyer in this scenario because you know the answer to this question. I'm going to ask it to you anyway.
I'm so scared I'm going to answer wrong now.
What is Patty Jenkins currently in pre-production on?
Oh, fuck. I don't know the answer to that.
No, you do. So Patty Jenkins is the director of Wonder Woman 2.
Oh my god.
What is she currently in pre-production on?
Is it Wonder Woman 3?
Yes, so what the fuck are you complaining about? You're making another Wonder Woman movie. How did this affect your career whatsoever?
No, well, that's what I'm saying. That's what my first theory was, is she is...
Like, they greenlit a third movie even though the second one didn't do that well. So clearly it did well enough.
Well, she's not...
Why are we having this conversation?
She doesn't want to blame COVID because that's probably taking a political stance. So she doesn't want to put it on herself saying, yeah, I effed up making the film. So who else are you going to blame? Yeah. The streaming services.
I co-wrote a really shitty script.
Right. You're not... She doesn't want to do that yet.
Where The Rock has powers and... no rules until I need it to have rules.
God, it's so bad. I like that movie hurt me. The thing is, it could just be like, and it's kind of a fad right now. It's kind of smart of her to say that because she's going ahead of the curve, and because everyone's starting to hate streaming services right now. Like, one, there's too many. They're starting to become too many. Two, they're taking advantage of the film industry, and they're hurting people of the film industry. And people are kind of on Scarlett Johansson's side with that kind of stuff. So I think she's like, she's being smart. Like, she's kind of doing, like, I'm not saying it's a publicity stunt, but she's being smart about, like, weaving this story, but should still probably be like taking responsibility for her actions.
Wait a minute. Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, the plot thickens.
No, dude, I just full circled this entire 2-hour plus conversation.
Another epiphany.
No, this is not an epiphany. This is just me fucking around on IMDb and thinking that I saw something earlier that I was like, wait, I thought it was one thing, but it's actually this thing. And now I'm realizing, no, I was right in the beginning, and that just makes this more interesting.
Okay.
So before we even started this conversation, because of course in the back of my mind I was like, Patty Jenkins, if I know we're going to talk about Denis Villeneuve because we teased that last week. I knew we were going to talk about MCU and Steve Ditko and lawsuit and all that stuff because you and I talked about it yesterday. And I was like, okay, if we get to Patty Jenkins, we'll get to it. So I just mentioned to you that Patty Jenkins is in pre-production, producing and directing Wonder Woman 3. Another thing that I knew that she was in pre-production to direct is she is doing her own version of Cleopatra, which is basically like
I think I've heard something on this.
Of the Egyptian leader, like which has already been made into a movie, but now this is going to be Patty Jenkins' take on the character, starring Gal Gadot.
Oh,
because
of course.
Why not?
Yeah.
But when we were talking about Denis Villeneuve earlier, and I finally got my computer working and I was able to pull up his IMDb, I was like, okay, cool. And on a list of movies that Denis Villeneuve is directing is Cleopatra. And so in my head, I was like, wait a minute, I thought Patty Jenkins was doing that. Well, shit. I must have... Well, clearly I read that wrong, and it's
no.
because I was like... Because I was scrolling through the IMDb listing for Cleopatra, and I didn't see Gal Gadot, and I was like, oh, okay, well, shit, maybe... They're both doing Cleopatra movies.
So different movies.
They're both in prep on movies about Cleopatra that have nothing to do with each other. This is just like when Disney did Jungle Book and Andy Serkis did Mowgli for Netflix.
Was that a coincidence, or was that...
Yes! This happens all the time. Like, dude, remember Snow White and the Huntsman? When Charlize Theron was the queen and Chris Hemsworth was the guy with the axe and Kristen Stewart was playing Snow White?
Yeah.
There's another movie called Mirror, Mirror where Julia Roberts is the queen and Lily Collins is Snow White. It's Armageddon and Deep Impact. This happens all the time.
That's so crazy.
I thought I made like a clerical error, but no, they're both apparently in prep on Cleopatra movies.
Well, honestly,
that's weird.
I'd love to just end it on that random note.
Yeah, you know what? That is a good note to end it on because we're talking about how filmmakers need to be treated with more respect because they have originality of vision, and we don't want to copy anybody else. Boom, sucker.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Thank you guys. We always find the lesson at the end of each of these episodes.
Oh my god.
If you enjoyed this podcast, this take of me and Jeff speaking about doing it, give us a subscribe, give us a like, tell us your thoughts in the comment section below. And this is a huge reason, this is a big plus for I guess with YouTube for us right now, because we get to hear people's thoughts, we get to get some feedback on the channel. If you're listening to us on the podcast, I would love to hear some of your feedback. Please find us at Digital Hero 101 on YouTube and tell us what you thought of the channel. Tell us or of the channel of the episode. Give us your opinion. Or are you happy whenever people speak out? Are you not happy whenever people speak out? Do you not care? let us know. And until next time, play nice. All right. So we're still live. I stopped the recordings so that will go on the podcast. I think I can fix a lot of the issues on my HUD and everything like that. So next time you guys are on chat, Etsy and stuff like that, my banner should work, and I'll have chat on screen again. Other than that, not bad. We didn't crash and burn. So that's good. That's a plus. But also HBO didn't make you. Oh wait, yeah, I already read that. I don't know why I was reading that again. But yeah, this is really cool. There's a lot of cool like bells and whistles here. Usually on Twitch, I watch as people join in and leave constantly. So on here, there's a chart, and I can watch as the chart goes up and down when people join in and leave. And this chart made my anxiety nowhere near as bad as like watching that one viewer thing, because as the it really does, because the graph goes up and down as people show up and leave, but there's a trend as the graph just continues to go up, because there like continuously are people that just decide to stay and listen, and so like even we might jump up to like 8 viewers and then like drop down to 2 viewers or something, but then like we stay at this consistent like rate that goes up, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. That like I'm like, okay, I'm not just anyways, that was cool. Thank you guys. Again, don't worry, I'm not 100. We're having fun. We're testing the waters. We're playing around with YouTube. I think this is really good for my podcast episodes on YouTube. So the Dungeons and Dragons episodes are going to be on here as well. I think it fits better for the format, and it helps the format a lot more with what we do on those shows. I'm still going to have the gaming episodes on Twitch, so we'll tune in there. I'm going to have everything so we're like, I'll notify you on the Discord, so join the Discord. I will connect Stream Elements to YouTube, and we'll see if we can get those commands working. Ezio, you'll have to play around with those commands when I get them connected. So Jeff, thank you for talking to me.
Absolutely, man.
I have to open
fun as
tomorrow.
always.
Oh, it's so fun. Love it. But yeah, dude, I'll talk to you later, man. You take care.
Cool. You as well. Have fun.
All right. And I'll see you guys later, chat.